Can you hear me okay? Yes? In the back? You can hear me? Whoa, did I do that?
I don't know.
I have no idea if I did that. I'm sorry if I did. Well, good morning. I'm Marjorie Kaplan. I'm the Associate Director of Rutgers Climate and Energy Institute. And on behalf of our Interim Director, Julie Lockwood, who ironically is on an NSF review panel this morning and hopes to join us later, I want to welcome everybody to today's workshop. It's been my pleasure for many years to partner with Janice McDonnell, who is an extraordinary colleague, and you're all really lucky to be here with her today because Janice is a national leader in the ARIS program, which you're going to learn all about, and among her many talents, she's our own secret weapon in helping all of you build your broader impact around climate change and energy research. We hope today will help you further frame your work for its societal benefits and, as a bonus, improve your competitiveness for NSF or other grants. See, I think about it the other way around. Hi, Travis. I haven't seen you in a long time. I'd like to give you a quick few-minute overview of the Rutgers Climate and Energy Institute, which we call RCEI, since we only launched in October. And while you may have come to the annual Rutgers Climate Symposium in November, which this year was the launch for RCEI, we may not have engaged many of you since then, or any of you at all. In July 2023, the RCEI was awarded a New Brunswick Chancellor Challenge grant through the New Brunswick Chancellor Challenge. Say that 3 times fast. It was called Toward the Common Good was the challenge. A cross-disciplinary faculty committee came together to submit the Transforming Climate Change Scholarship at Rutgers New Brunswick proposal to this competition to form RCEI. And thankfully they won. So RCEI is the result of that winning proposal, which had at its core mission to contribute to a resilient, equitable, and sustainable climate future. We connect faculty, staff, and students through transformative climate change research, innovation, education, and outreach, just like every other center, right? Except ours is about climate and energy. It included the merger of 3 existing institutes. So you may not have known about all of us, but there was the Rutgers Climate Institute, the Rutgers Energy Institute, and the Rutgers Institute of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences. And it's framed around 4 focus areas with 4 terrific faculty area leads whose pictures are up there. Earth System Science, led by Professor Anthony Broccoli, the Department of Environmental Sciences, and Tony's going to join us after he teaches today. The Human Dimensions of Climate Mitigation, Adaptation, and Resilience, led by Professor Rachel Schwam, who is Chair of Human Ecology. Renewable Energy Technology and Energy Conservation, led by Professor Dunbar Burney from the Department of Materials Science and Engineering. And Climate Change Communication and Environmental Humanities, led by Professor Jacqueline Thaw, the Chair of Art and Design at Mason Gross School of the Arts. So you can see we really are cutting across the university. We have about 190 faculty and research staff whose scholarship touches upon climate change as affiliates. Right now we have 2 signature initiatives, one including the Wind Energy Test Center, led by Professors Oner Bilgin in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, and Josh Kohut of Marine and Coastal Sciences. This project was also a winner of the Chancellor's Challenge and was logically merged with RCEI due to the nexus of their missions. Given New Jersey's offshore wind resources, the WET or WET project is focusing on predictive models for offshore wind turbines, and a big part of its focus is working on the preliminary design of a net zero wind energy test center planned for a yet-to-be-determined location near the Jersey Shore, and also development and implementation of a smaller testing and teaching lab on the Rutgers New Brunswick campus. In the coming months, you'll be hearing more about the October 2024 Wind Tech Conference that will be coming to New Brunswick and hosted here at Rutgers. Our other signature project is the Center on Sustainability and Governance in the Anthropocene, led by Professors Pam McElwee and Rachel Schwam in Human Ecology. This project is to design a future center on sustainability and governance, focusing on innovative and interdisciplinary social science research that develops and assesses new forms of environmental governance to address issues that are really intractable challenges like climate change. and it's supported with a planning grant from NSF, and you'll soon hear an announcement about a forthcoming May 7th symposium that's going to be held right here in this room, and it will also be live streamed. And perfect timing, Pam McElwee has walked into the room. So stay tuned, but talk to Pam if you'd like at some time today. You'll get a wealth of information about this. We're going to be launching the first of what we're calling Convergence Cafes later this spring. These are informal gatherings for faculty and staff that will be held around research themes that are emerging as ripe areas to develop transdisciplinary faculty and research staff connections and partnerships. We're developing an internal competitive grant program where right now we're calling it Groundwork Grants to help faculty to do the work to lay the foundation of growing Rutgers capacity in these emerging research theme areas. We hope to announce these in late April. We also have in our portfolio resources to develop curriculum related to our focus areas. And one program I'll mention is our student support program. You see all the wonderful faces of our students who've been supported by that. It provides grants to Rutgers PhD students whose major area of scholarship relates to our focus areas to support their travel for educational or research purposes. The deadline for this grant round is April 1st, so share that with PhD students. It's all on our website. And if you're not on our mailing list, please contact us. You can talk to me or Oliver or Matt today through our web, or go to our website and sign up. We send out a weekly digest. It usually comes out on Thursday mornings, and it's chocked full of all sorts of events and opportunities for faculty, staff, and students. Lastly, I have to say thank you to Janice for today and to Oscar Schofield, who nudged us to do this, and also to Oliver Stringham and Matt Drews and Julie Lockwood and all the partner organizations that are going to be here today. We hope it's a great day, and we hope it leads you to some fulfilling partnerships and to successful grants. So thank you. And I'm going to introduce Janice McDonnell.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. I want to give you a quick rundown on what ARIS is. You might be wondering what that stands for and what it is. I'm really happy to be here. I'm especially thankful to Marjorie and Oscar and Julie and Matt and Oliver for putting this together. But let me tell you a little bit about ARIS. ARIS is a NSF-sponsored center called Advancing Research Impacts in Society. We were started in 2018 with NSF funding. The lead institution is the University of Missouri. I'm a co-PI here at Rutgers, as well as the University of Minnesota and Oregon State. We did have University of Wisconsin-Madison initially, but their PI retired and dropped out of the project. So we're very happy to have this project. It really shows NSF's increasing interest in broader impacts, and we're going to be talking a lot more about that today. So what does ARIS do? Our job is really to amplify the impacts of research for the benefits of society. Very, very simple. And really serve as a hub or a resource for not only broader impact professionals like myself, but for researchers to learn about how to do this work and do it well. We're working very hard on developing a community of practice. We have roughly 1,000 members across the country who are interested in the ARIS work and ARIS Center and contribute and attend our annual conference or summit, which is coming up at the end of this month. We also work internationally. As it turns out, Canada has a very similar effort in their granting agency that allows us to partner very closely with them. So we'll talk more about that. But a little bit more about me before we get started, so that you know where I'm coming from here. I am in the Department of 4-H Youth Development, where I am the STEM agent. 4-H is under cooperative extension, and you're going to hear more about that a little bit later. But I also work closely, and have for a long time worked very closely with the Marine Science Department. I do a lot of curriculum development, and this ARIS grant, I've done a lot of resource development, which you're going to hear a lot about today. And I'm also a trainer for ARIS, which means I travel all over the country doing workshops like this. So I was born and raised in Freehold, New Jersey. Fun fact, I used to trick or treat at this guy's house. I went to the University of Connecticut, go Huskies if they're in your bracket, where I got a degree in biology. Then I got my master's in marine benthic ecology, where I spent a lot of time on this little research vessel here studying the Chesapeake Bay. But more importantly, it's where I learned my love of science communication, because I, as a graduate student, was asked to teach biology for non-majors, and that's where I learned that that's where my passion really is. And then I got hired by this guy, Dr. Fred Grassley, in the mid-90s. He had a vision well ahead of his time. This was before broader impacts was a thing. He hired me to support the faculty at the Marine and Coastal Sciences. At the time, we were at Institute of Marine and Coastal Sciences. And he hired me to support the faculty. And what's interesting about that is NSF actually sent 5 or 6 program officers because of this new position that Fred had created. And they came to observe our department and how he was trying to create a culture of broader impacts at the time. So Marine and Coastal Sciences has had this culture for quite some time, thinking about that. And just to give you a little context, this is my 20th presentation since 2018. I've been everywhere, man, all over the place. Michigan State, Arizona, more recently at CUNY, where we had 91 faculty show up to learn all about this. My favorite one was the University of Arkansas, where I've never been to Arkansas before, but there's a lot of interest in this. And who's in the room today? So let's talk about that. Thank you for filling out your registrations. There's a lot of early career folks in the room, which is great. Love to see it. And a lot of us have written NSF grants, but a lot of us have not. So there's kind of a split there, a real nice split between those who have and haven't, which is great for when we do a little bit of table work together. And then where do we all come from? Really, all over the place. Lots of SEB folks, lots of engineering folks. My Marine and Coastal Sciences colleagues, I thank them for coming. They always turn out for us to this kind of stuff. So appreciate you being here, taking the time to do this and to participate in today's activities, which I hope you'll really enjoy. We're going to split the day into 2 parts. The first part is going to be giving you kind of a foundational knowledge of what broader impacts is, because it's actually changing quite a bit in NSF, and we'll be talking about that. We'll talk about maybe your assumptions about broader impacts, what it is. I'll try to give you the hard-hitting facts of what you need to know about it, how to think about using our resources to create a plan that really has some legs and a wow factor. And then we'll talk a little bit about our local heroes, because like I said, we have some really great people at Rutgers that really do some amazing work. And I'm super thankful to the panelists, there's 10 of them that you're going to hear from today, who all do this work and do it really, really well. So we're going to hopefully make some connections for you to be able to build your own identity and purpose in this work. But just as a point of context before we get started, where do all NSF dollars go, right? This is a list of the top 12 ranked universities around the country, and some of the names there will be, not surprising to you. But if you look, there's a couple of Big Ten colleagues in there, Wisconsin, Madison, Ohio State, that are doing a really good job of getting NSF dollars. We're not in the top 12. We are actually ranked about 40th if you look at all of our campuses combined. This slide is courtesy of Dr. Marika Dunn, who you're going to hear from our Office of Research in a little while. But 46 if you're just looking at New Brunswick. So there's lots of room here to use our resources and use our creative brain power to get more funding from NSF here into our university system. Okay, so let's start by talking about where we are, right? When we think of broader impacts, I work with a lot of faculty all over the place, right? And it really is a range of responses. When you say the word broader impacts, you get a different response from different people. Some people really look at it as a burden, something that they just want to get through, right? It's a burden. I want to do my research, and please don't bother me with the societal benefit conversation. Some of it really want to do it, but they're looking at it as a box-checking exercise. And what I hope you'll look at it today, when we're done, as more of an opportunity, right? Because it really is. There's a tremendous amount of fun and fulfilling things you can do with your broader impact work if you treat it properly. So NSF has 2 criterion. One is intellectual merit, which you're all very familiar with. This is your This is your IP, right? This is your research. This is what you're doing across your field, and in some cases very interdisciplinary, to learn more about the natural world, right? Or to provide new solutions, engineering solutions, whatever it might be. Broader impacts, as defined by NSF, is the potential of a project to benefit society or advance desired societal outcomes. So what does that mean, right? If we look at the PAPG, that's the Proposal and Awards Policy Guide, some people say, look at it if you really can't sleep at night. It can be a very heavy and overwhelming document. I actually think it's a good thing to look at, but what I'm going to try to do today is pare some of this down and give you the hard punching points from it. But the key thing to understand is that broader impacts can be, your research can be the broader impacts, or it can be directly related to your project, or it can be complementary to your project. So there's a lot of wiggle room there to think about how your broader impacts fits into your research program. And the best way to think about it, and if you don't remember anything else we talk about today, it's this big statement at the end here. The best broader impact plans are ones that are seamlessly integrated into the research. That's what we really are striving for here. Not to create some extra add-on thing that's a pain for you to do, but really think about it as an integrated effect that really represents you as a researcher. So this article just came out, and I want to raise this because it is kind of a game changer in terms of how we think about broader impacts. So this article was in Science a couple weeks ago, and it was reflecting the recent meetings of the National Science Foundation has an advisory board. And this advisory board met, and they're currently reviewing the criterion, especially broader impacts, to think about its future. And where it's all going, right, in terms of as a formal criterion for the foundation. And it turns out they're thinking very strongly about changing the name from broader impacts to societal benefits. That's the punchline of this article. So that's, it's a nuance, but it's important, right? It's an important nuance of what that means, and it changes the ways in which we do broader impacts, right? And it also, they're thinking about creating a sub-score for broader impacts, which is also really important because, as Marjorie alluded to, not only are we trying to do good things for the world, but it'll also, if you understand it well, will help you review well and get the money into your accounts here at Rutgers. So let's talk a little bit more, because you're going to hear me kind of go between broader impacts, societal benefits, and societal research impacts, right? They're all sort of under this umbrella term, right, of how we think about how we benefit society, right? So if we look at what we mean by societal benefits or societal impact, it's really the effect of research on the real world, right? And how that goes beyond academia. That's really the key here, of how do we think about our work beyond the walls of Rutgers? And how can we affect culture, public policy, services, or the environment, the quality of life of the environment in those ways. So that's how I want you to think about it. And really what I want you to think about it as a social process, right? So that involves the arts, the humanities. There's lots of different ways in which we can bring in societal impacts through our research. And the important thing is, when you think about outreach, you're thinking about, okay, that research going out into the community, right? It's sort of this one-way progression, right? We're here at Rutgers and we're sending our research out into the world. And I would encourage you to also think about it as thinking about how your partners can benefit from the research. So how are they influencing what you're doing and giving you insight as to how you might benefit society from your research, making it that two-way street, if you will. That's not always easy to do, but it's extremely valuable to do, especially when we're talking about the climate and energy space that we're going to be kind of using as a thematic theme today, right? But most importantly, and these are the words of NSF of how they want the societal impact to be measured. They want it to be measurable, right? They want you to have evaluation, to be able to say something or demonstrate the impact in some way. They want it, most importantly, to be benefits beyond academia, right? And very distinct from your academic life. And we're going to talk more about this later. But it can't be your teaching and the things that you already get paid for, right, here at Rutgers. It's got to be something that reaches beyond that, beyond your academic life. And then most importantly, that it's real world, that somehow it's meeting the needs of a community in some way, shape, or form. And that can take a lot of shapes and forms, and we'll be talking about that in more detail. So here's, as a biologist, here's how I like to think about it, right? There's all these things I just laid on you, right, that you have to do, and especially if you're an early career person, that might feel intimidating, right? And I get that. But think about all the resources this place has. Rutgers is an amazing place and a big place. And there's lots and lots of resources out there that can allow you to do your work and do it well. And I'm going to throw out some examples for you. One that I work for, cooperative extension. That's what it's there for, right? We are there to be that interface and that plasma membrane that will help you make those connections to communities, right? My cooperative extension colleagues have partners all across their communities that they work with every day, and they know these partners and they know their needs. So use your cooperative extension colleagues. That's what we're here for. There's also some amazing centers, such as Brian Kursky's Rutgers Collaborative Center, right, for community engagement. Brian's back there. You're going to hear from him, and he is a wonderful resource for you to be thinking about as you move through trying to plan your broader impacts, right, or your societal benefits. And there's lots of others, right? Those are just two that are specifically positioned for this work that I just wanted to call out and make sure you understood. So, how do you think about broader impacts, right? There's lots and lots of ways, and like I said, I've kind of heard different stories along the way. Many PIs come to me and they say, well, it has to be K-12, right? You have to do something in the K-12 world or pre-college world in order to do a broader impact project. Well, not really. We'll talk more about that. Or it has to be this huge distraction, right, from what I'm already doing, this add-on thing that I don't really want to be doing. I'd rather be doing my research. No, it doesn't have to be that either. So those are the two things that I want to convince you of today. And what I really want you to do is think your goal for today should be to extract from all of us, myself, the 10 panelists that you're going to hear from, Dr. Marika Dunn from the Office of Research, and others. Lori Dars is going to be here from ICOR. There's lots and lots of people here that can help you think this through. And I want you to try to think about how is your research relevant, and what should you prioritize about your research as you think about your societal benefits criterion. And how can you take your science questions and turn them into messages that are relevant to audiences beyond Rutgers, right, beyond your peers. That's what you should be thinking about. And everyone should have gotten a little worksheet at the registration table. If for some reason you didn't get one, we'll pull some and pull them around the room so that you have that. But that's your goal for today, and use this space to really hone in on that and work on that, because I think that's the benefit of doing this workshop today, hopefully. NSF has some ideas about what they think impact looks like. And this is the list we call it. There's a list of 10 things. And some of these big ideas you'll recognize. They're ones that you've probably seen in your solicitations or have thought about or heard about. And I'll say, I'm not going to read them all to you, but we do have this panel coming in a little while that we specifically chose people from these different impact areas or areas of investment for you to learn and listen from, and actually to talk to over lunch. So that's going to be really good. But the ones that we see the most are those top 3, right? NSF has actually done studies where they've looked at required abstracts on broader impacts, and they find that those are the top most common investment areas that they see in proposals. And that's the underrepresented minorities in STEM, STEM education, educator development, and science literacy and public engagement. Those are the big ones. Does that mean you have to do those? No. You can touch on any one of these 10 areas and be very successful at NSF, and we'll be talking a lot more about that over the course of the day. But these are all on their website as well, and I'll show you some resources where you can look at these more closely. So our challenge is kind of this, right? We have this. Hopefully, I've convinced you that you have a desire to create an innovative and impactful, hopefully evidence-based, broader impact activity that you can show impact from that has an evaluation component. But we all know the realities, right? You guys live it every day as a researcher, especially those in the tenure track. It's very challenging, right? We all have busy lives. The work-life balance can be really challenging. At the end of the day, a typical NSF grant, you might get $100,000 a year, right? Let's just say over 3 or 4 years, right? You're getting about $100,000. Half of that goes to the university. Then you have to pay your summer salary or a graduate student. And the budget to work on broad impacts is very small, right? It's not going to be a huge budget for you to play with. But the good news is that we have a lot of resources at Rutgers that can help augment that. And we also have a lot of expertise in the area, right, of evaluation, education, outreach. And we all know that time is always a limiting factor. But again, these are things that can be overcome. They are reality, but they can be overcome. And hopefully I can show you some examples of how we've done that. But before we get into that, I want you to meet Dr. Overwhelmed, because some of you may be feeling like him right now. And this is a very typical visit to my office. So let me play you this little clip.
Hello, I'm new faculty here, and I'm working on my first grant. Got a pretty good handle on the intellectual merit, but I have no clue where to start with the broader impacts. Some colleagues suggested I reach out to you for assistance. Would you be willing to chat with me about this? Thanks very much.
Okay, so Dr. Overwhelmed has visited my office more than once. And the first thing that I normally say to Dr. Overwhelmed is, let's talk about these 4 things. Because these 4 questions will help solve all the problems that we just identified in the first part of this presentation, right? So what part of your research do you really want to share? What are your hobbies? What do you like doing, right? What's enjoyable to you? What do you hate doing, all right? I want to know that. I've had faculty at Marine and Coastal Sciences say, please don't make me talk to kids. I hate kids, And that's okay, right? It's important to know that. And then, what things am I juggling? What things are going on in your busy life? Are you caring for an elderly parent that maybe you find yourself in a nursing home or a senior center of some sort, right? Let's use that, right? Where are you spending your time? Let's use that to our advantage. So here's what the rest of that conversation looks like with Dr. Overwhelmed.
So how's it going?
Honestly, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed. I don't even know where to start.
Well, you're probably further along than you think. What kind of education or outreach work have you done so far?
As a postdoc, I supervised and mentored a few undergraduates in the lab.
Oh,
Some were from underrepresented minority groups.
okay.
I also talked about my research to a local high school during Science Day.
Wow, okay. How did that go?
Yeah, they seemed bored. I probably got too technical.
Well, it's hard to tell with high schoolers. Maybe they loved it.
I hated it, actually. I'm better at talking to adults.
Well, that is good to know. See, a broader impacts project is about leveraging your strengths and interests. You shouldn't be doing things you hate.
Well, I hate Instagram and Twitter.
Well, good news. You do not need to use Instagram or Twitter.
It's a common misconception that broader impacts might involve doing things you're not good at.
Yes, we don't want to be doing things that we're not good at or that we don't like. That's one of the key messages, right? So I want to give you an example of a couple of colleagues that I really admire and I've worked with for a really long time on broader impacts. Some of you may know Dr. Kay Beidel. He is a biological oceanographer in Marine and Coastal Sciences. Professionally, he's been at Rutgers for quite some time. When I first met him, he was teaching Intro to Oceanography courses. Personally, he has 3 kids, a couple of twin boys at the time. As I said, he's a biologist. His wife works in another local college and does a lot with teacher professional development. Very involved in their communities. He taught soccer and was just very, very community focused. So we started with his interest in teachers and supporting teachers. So he accompanied me on several teacher professional developments back in the day, and then he was really interested in working at the Liberty Science Center and talking to the public in informal spaces. So we organized a lecture series, I think Oscar participated in it too, called Pulse of the Planet, that was very successful, where we talked to the public first, the PI talked to the public first, and then did a teacher professional development after the fact. that was really fun and engaging. So we started with that, started small, you know, and then we, then as proposals progressed and time went on, he got interested in sort of looking at that next level. This was around the time that the next generation science standards were coming out, and teachers were being asked to be very integrative of teaching science practices and content and thinking about the ways they're doing it, and it was just a really exciting time in education. So he dreamed up this thing that we now call Tools of Science, which is a series of videos that allow kind of teachers and students to see that higher level process of science, right? So how do scientists collaborate? How do they, what's their creativity like? You know, what's the testable question? How do you model things, right? So he got into those kinds of things. And then that sort of progressed too, right? It's become a really popular, robust Tools of Science program that now they're getting into thinking about data literacy and creating interactives that complement the videos that really involve more, you know, sort of expression of what science is really all about. That's his passion, is showing kids what science is really like. And he's brought in other colleagues. This is Kim, and you know, they worked very closely together to build this amazing program. If you haven't seen Tools of Science, I highly recommend you check it out. There's a QR code there. I can make some of these slides available if those of you that are interested. But this is the series. The modeling one is incredibly popular. Whoa, what happened? I didn't do anything. Are we okay back there, guys? All right. I don't know, I didn't touch anything. So modeling is a really great video. It's actually been adopted in the LA Unified School District. So it's used every year to help students really understand what scientific models are. The latest one is creativity. They just put this out a few weeks ago. And if you look at Rutgers today, I think this week you'll see an article about the creativity video coming out. So that's one example, right, of a PI that's kind of been on a journey with me and thinking about broader impacts. And then we have, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, okay. Is it okay back there? I'm not touching anything, so I'm not sure why it's doing that. Anyway, so this is another colleague we all know and love, right? Dr. Oscar Schofield is right here. Oscar is also a biological oceanographer, but he's also an explorer, he's a technologist, entrepreneur. He's our department chair currently, wasn't at the time I met him. Personally, he loves to travel. He has a really great sense of humor, and he has a natural gift for science communication. I think he was just born with it, so really easy to work with. When we first started working together, we produced a web program called Cool Classroom that was focused around his lab, the Center for Ocean Observing, and it just really, it was really fun and really engaging. We had grants together to work on that. And then as time progressed, Oscar started working with Dina Seidel, who's also here, doing feature films and documentaries, really, again, sharing that work more broadly. In bigger audiences, more informally. And then more recently, we've developed a couple of curriculum that reach tens of thousands of youth, and really wide commercially available curriculum that is very far reaching. But the common thread through his whole trajectory of his broader impact identity has been the technology and the entrepreneurial spirit and explorer spirit that he brings to all of his work, right, across the board. He's also done some really cool NPR programs where this is called You're the Expert, where I made him try to have these comedians guess what his discipline is or what he was by asking him a series of questions. We did this over at the George Street Playhouse. Tons of fun. This gets tens of thousands of downloads from people wanting to hear these comedians ask him what he does for a living. Really fun. This is the Antarctic Edge movie, which I highly encourage you to check out as well. And then finally, these are the curricula that we've worked on together. This is the Explorers of the Deep, which is a 4-H program, and then our more recently had an NSF project looking to develop this curriculum, the Polar Explorers curriculum. So those are just two examples of a trajectory, you know, taking a look at how that has been built over time. And hopefully that inspires you to think about what you might want to do, right? So I want to give you just a few minutes here to think about this, right? And because if you don't do it now, you might never do it, right? So let's take a moment to think about this. You have a little worksheet. If you want to take a moment to just jot down an answer to one or more of these questions. And then I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to do that, just what comes to your mind. And then I'm going to have you talk about it at your tables, just to give you a chance to talk and meet someone else at your table. And also think about this, because this is really important. It's the foundation of figuring out your broader impacts. Okay? Thank you so much for having your table conversations. Hopefully you met somebody new, learned something new from them. That's a really important part of this as well. So this process is not over today. We teach a whole course, workshop course in broader impact identity, which is what you're starting right now, is building your broader impact identity. And that's a full day workshop. So if anyone's interested in that, it's actually a really fun experience. I did one for the medical school maybe last year. It was like, yeah, maybe a year ago. So definitely we can do another one of those if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into building your broader impact identity, which we'll talk a little bit more about as well. But what I wanted to do is kind of start to show you some of the tools that we have available to you that can help you with, now that you've sort of got this impression of what you want to do from those 4 questions. There are lots of tools available. The URL is right there. It's aris.marine.rutgers.edu. And this is a set of tools that my colleagues and I have developed. And I'm going to walk you through them. It's a suite of digital tools, so everything is free and available to you as a researcher to help you think about your societal benefits and broader impact work more broadly. So we're going to be just giving you a cursory overview of what these tools can do for you and how you might think about using them. So let's think about that. The first one I'm going to highlight for you is the Broader Impacts Guiding Principles document. So this is a downloadable PDF that you can just pull off the website. Basically what this is it takes NSF's 5 guiding questions that are in every NSF solicitation, and it provides you with some context and sort of background information on what that question is about and how you might approach it as a researcher, either on the evaluation side, let's say you've been asked to serve on an NSF panel, or it can help you on the creation side, right? Thinking about what a reviewer might be looking for, right? So it's kind of serves both purposes. And we call it guiding principles because basically a team or an advisory board from around the country got together, and it's embedded in effective practices from the literature. And we got together and formed this document based on the literature and responses to those 5 questions and how one might approach them from an NSF lens, right? So this one is a great starter document to kind of help you get your feet on the ground and thinking about broader impacts. It's meant for that purpose. And we've passed out tens of thousands of these since 2018, trying to help researchers with those NSF 5 questions. The second tool that I'll share with you has been around a little bit longer, and this is our Broader Impact Wizard. This product, Saj, who's here in the audience, and many others formed back in the mid-2000s. This was the result of another NSF grant that we had here at Rutgers called COSE, Centers for Ocean Science Education Excellence. And we ran a center here for about 10 years, Oscar, myself, Saj. And at the end of that grant, we decided, it wasn't part of our original mission, but we decided to codify all the things we had learned about educator-scientist partnerships and what those looked like and how that related to broader impacts work. And we created this wizard, right? Because what we didn't want was for all that knowledge to just be lost because of the center being not being funded anymore. So we wanted for that information to live on. So we created this wizard, and we joked about it at the time. It was kind of like, you remember, some of you probably don't remember, I'm old enough to remember, the little paperclip, annoying little character that used to appear in Word that would help you think through how to start a document or whatever. Mr. Clippy, yes, Mr. Clippy. So see, the old timers know that one. But I definitely remember him, and we joked about it like having a little wizard, a little guide on the side would be really helpful. So it started out as that, and it's morphed into now this kind of multi-layered thing. There's actually a planning guide, which is all the background information you need to know about broader impacts, a lot of which we're going over today, so it's a great reference guide, if you will. And then there's the actual wizard, which is a set of fillable fields that will actually help you work through the creation of your broader impact statement. It's a great tool to just sit down and start writing, right? Because we all know when we do that, getting words on the paper is step one, right? So this wizard guide is not Mr. Clippy annoying, but it does give you that sort of, that background, to be able to start writing in response to questions. So this tool is really, really dense and really useful if you know how to use it, and looking at those two different purposes, background information versus the actual editing tool. What I want to do is show you just a really short video. Probably the most useful part of the Broader Impact Wizard is this little video that we had produced. It's very short, and it's meant to give you kind of a hard-hitting overview. And it's a nice review at this point of all the things we've talked about. It's very, like I said, very short, but it gives you the components of a broader impact statement. So I'd like to just play that for you, just so you get a nice introduction to the wizard through this video. So here we go.
Pretend you work here. Your specialty is the Aurelia orati, or moon jelly. Or maybe it's superconductors, or perhaps black holes, or volcanoes, or whatever it is. Let's just say it's moon jellies. The reason you are an expert is because you spend a lot of time here in the field and here in the lab doing research on moon jellies, trying to answer that question that no one has asked before. But this research costs money, so you go to the NSF. And the NSF wants to know that you are a good investment. They want to know that the money they spend on your research will advance the science and positively impact society. Whether that's educating the public or helping policymakers, why does learning about jellies matter to them? You need to show why it's important for other people to understand your work. The question you need to answer is, what's the broader impact of your research? Now, the Broader Impact Wizard is designed to help you craft a broader impact statement to share your research with others. Let's take a look at some of these ideas you'll need to know when working through this wizard. Let's start with audience. You need to show that you can communicate the importance of your work outside your discipline or the scientific community. This could be anything from youth groups to members of an industry, like fisher people. The audiences that you target will influence how you present your work. What resonates with one group might not resonate with another, so you have to modify your message accordingly. Collaborative partnerships. You can't effectively make a broader impact doing everything yourself, and you shouldn't. There are people out there whose expertise centers around, say, web design, curriculum development, or video production. You'll be far more successful communicating your research if you partner with these people and leverage their expertise. And remember, your broader impact project can be a powerful opportunity to engage communities. Working with local organizations like a school is a great way to spread your research to a wider audience. Statement of uniqueness. Your broader impact statement should aspire to the same level of uniqueness that your research does. It's gotta be new. No one wants to fund research that's already been done. Similarly, you have to find your niche. Leverage what your institution already has to offer, such as partnerships with programs, to create something new. Do something you are comfortable with in a way you like to communicate. The key is to find broader impact approaches that are proven to work and apply them to your research in a new way. You have to get creative. Evaluation plan. You want to know your message is going to resonate with your intended audience. The best way to do that is to conduct evaluation. So even if you've built the Jellies research site, you've partnered with the local aquarium, developed a STEM-rich moon jelly curriculum for K through 12, and you've got a snazzy moon jelly video, if what you're saying isn't resonating with your intended audience, you haven't met the goals of broader impacts. There are professionals, internal and external to your institution, who can help you collect information on whether you have met your project's objectives. And if necessary, they can tweak your message to make sure you're actually making an impact and not wasting resources. And finally, a defensible budget for your broader impact. The first step is to realize that a broader impact program is not an add-on. You should think of it as an integral part of your identity as a scholar in both research and broader impacts. Second, be realistic. Working with people costs money. Everyone needs to be paid fairly for what they do. Supplies cost money. travel, overhead, everything should be included in a realistic budget. So in the end, know that you have to spend money. A budget that is well thought out and covers all your bases gets you one step closer to locking in funding. Ultimately, if you do it right, the results are worth it. And now, it's your turn. The wizard awaits.
Okay, so that gives you a little sense of scale, right? What belongs in your broader impact statement, touching on those different areas that Josh just talked to you about in the video. But if we really boil it down, right, because we already talked about the balancing act, right, of budgets that can be small and our desire to do big things, right? But the key is to focus on these things, making sure that it's achievable, right? Don't overpromise. Don't try to make more of it than needs to be. NSF is well aware of what budgets are available and what you can do with what reasonable amounts of money. So being realistic is really important, making sure it's achievable. Making sure that you can build off effective practices, right? That it's substantive, that it's personal. We've talked a lot about that, right? Making sure it's something that you really, really, really want to do. And then, of course, that it's measurable, right? Accessible, that you can, really make sure it's accessible to people, especially when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Who can this program be accessible to? So you want to make sure that that's the case. So I just want to share a couple of pitfalls that I have seen over the 28 years that I've been doing this, just to kind of help you avoid some of these things. The first one I call the bumblebee effect, and that's where PIs sort of flit from one thing to the next, and it doesn't allow them to sort of build that identity over time, right? In one sense, they might work in this space and then another space, and obviously it's okay to experiment and change with different things over time, but having a thread that you really care about, like I used Oscar as an example, his thread is the technology and the entrepreneurial aspect of how we look at the ocean, right? That appears in every single one of his products, everything that he's ever worked on, right, in terms of public engagement. So try to pick a lane, and even though you may change the audience or the way in which you do it, the overarching message is really, really great to have, because that ends up being very measurable and achievable over time, over the course of your career. So avoid the bumblebee effect. The other one that I like to say is the laundry list, right? And we see this a lot with PIs, especially new PIs, that want to tell them everything in the world they want to do, right? You'll create this big old bulleted list. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to have a snazzy video, like in the thing, and a curriculum, and a this and a that. You can have all those things, but not necessarily in the same grant, right? You give yourself time over a timeline to make sure that those things are achievable. So try to avoid the laundry list. And this is one that comes up a lot, which is this tug of war between being innovative and accessing university resources, right? You're going to hear in a few minutes from this panel that's going to tell you about all the resources that they can provide you, right? And that's great. But what you want to do is put that personal spin on it, right? That thing that makes it yours. And that's really the heart of a good broader impact, is taking a good resource or a good effective practice and then putting your special touch on it and making that innovation. So it doesn't have to be the tug of war, right, between what already exists and what you want to create. The ones that are really challenging in that tug of war are the ones that say, I'm going to create an undergraduate, program in my lab, that is probably part of your teaching anyway, right? So just making sure that it's a next level from what you get paid for at Rutgers to do, and then adding that societal benefit component. So just making sure that you don't give yourself that tug of war. Now the last one is the Wheel of Fortune effect here. And that is, I'm old enough to know that in the Wheel of Fortune early days, they didn't used to give you any of the vowels or consonants, right? You had to guess them all, right? And then they sort of realized over time that everybody went for R, S, T, L, N, E, right? Those were the common letters that everybody went for, right? And so the point is, they make you go after those 3 extra consonants and 1 vowel, right? So that's the innovative part, right? So you can use your Wheel of Fortune standard letters, like an undergraduate program, a website, a K-12 program, whatever it might be. But those extra consonants and vowels are where it's at, right? That's what makes it innovative, right? So think about that as a metaphor for how using a standard practice as a baseline of your consonants there, of your standard letters from Wheel of Fortune, but also add that extra spin of what are the extra things that you're going to pick that would allow that to work for you personally and highlight you as a person and your identity as a researcher. So those are just some things that I think are fun to think about and important that will help you distinguish yourself from the pack, right? Because we still know that NSF only funds 10%, right, of what they get, sometimes less, depending on the division, right? So it's really important to stand out. And if you avoid that Wheel of Fortune standard R, S, T, L, and E, and add those extra consonants or vowel, then you're really making yourself stand out, right? So that's my ultimate message to you, to do that. The thing that comes up the most often as a pain point, if you will, is evaluation. And this is how do you document your story of success? How are you going to collect data to support the claims that you're making about how successful you've been in benefiting society? And it turns out that this can be really challenging, right? It can be really simple or really sophisticated depending on the needs or the style of grant you're getting. A center grant is really different than a basic research grant, $400,000 versus a center multi-million-dollar grant, right? So you can be really sophisticated in the center and really simple in the basic research grant. And you can use in-house people or you can use consultants, right? In-house maybe for your basic research and consultants maybe for a large center grant. So be really judicious about how you think about evaluation. Again, we run a whole separate program on evaluation because it is kind of a sticky wicket, getting through and being able to figure out the best ways to evaluate your success. So that I'll just mention it here. We don't have time to dive too deep into it. But I will say that the PAPG, again, that document to read if you need to sleep at night, having trouble falling asleep, says that meaningful assessment and evaluation should be based on appropriate metrics, keeping in mind that the likely correlation between the effect of broader impacts and the resources provided to implement the project. So basically what they're saying there is be realistic about the money you're going to spend, right? I don't like to give you dollar figures about how much you should spend on this versus that, but I can tell you that the most common thing we see is that if you have let's say you have a broader impact budget of $25,000, usually about 10% of that is your evaluation. So you want to put some money aside to make sure that you have somebody that can help you develop the impact assessment for your work. It's really important to report back to NSF and in general for your career trajectory, building your identity, right? So that's the wizard in a nutshell. I just gave you a snapshot of all of the planning information that's in there as well as the wizard tool itself. There are two other tools that I'm just going to touch on, literally because we don't have a lot of time, and again, they're separate workshops. One is the checklist. This is a useful tool. It's a little digital tool that allows you to look at all of the different components of your broader impact plan or statement that you're generating, and just be able to check off, did I did these things or did I not do these things? People find this really useful because it helps you kind of stay focused and centered on what needs to be in your narrative, right? Very simple tool, not a whole lot to say about it other than it's a great little checklist, right? Hence the name. This one is way more complex, and I'm not going to get into it other than to say that we have this great rubric, right? This has been in development over the last 2.5 years-ish. Myself and a few colleagues have been working on this and iterating with it. And it's really exciting because as NSF, as the advisory board starts to think about having a sub-criteria for how they're going to assess broader impacts, this rubric is really a tool to help you think about how your broader impact can be assessed. Or again, if you've been invited to a panel, how you're going to compare 10 different broader impacts across the proposals that you've been assigned in a fair and just way, right? So this tool is definitely in development. We just completed 2 rounds of focus groups with researchers from around the country, and its interrelator reliability is really good at this point, so we're really excited about releasing it more broadly and having it be something that you can use not only to draft your plan, to assess your own work, but also on the reviewer side to be able to help you with panel review programs as well. So this is, again, a whole separate workshop, and I'd be happy to, we have sample plans, we help researchers learn how to use it and train people how to use it, and that's something we can also do in the future if we have a critical mass of folks who want to do that. So that's the toolkit in general, and I just want to make sure that all of that talk doesn't get lost in translation. So I want to give you the 5 things that I really want you to walk away from this first part of the workshop knowing, right? And the first one is that broader impacts is an opportunity, right, to positively impact society. And things are really changing. This co-development aspect of research and NSF is really changing their tone about this as well. And you're going to hear more from Dr. Marika Dunn in just a few minutes about what that's really about, right? And the way their solicitations are changing to make sure that societal benefits are really baked into to your plans and to your work. So really look at it as an opportunity and not a burden. It is one of the 2 criteria that are required, and take advantage of that, right? Have that be something that you lean into. The toolkit can help you do that. That's what it's there for. It'll help you make a fun, more importantly, we want this to be fun and well-received broader impact plan. Do know that NSF is not prescriptive. Although I showed you those 10 different investment areas, they are suggested, right? So really the sky is the limit. And that's both a curse and a blessing, right? As an early career investigator, you want to see what good looks like, and we get that, right? That's important. You have to know what the benchmarks are. So using those investment areas are really helpful in that way, but they are a guide, right? It doesn't mean that you have to color it in the lines, right? You can go outside the lines, but those investment areas are there to help you focus, right? And to think about your impacts and how you can benefit society. And probably the most important thing that I want you to walk away from here knowing is that you have to choose activities that are fun and rewarding and achievable to you. And that they have to have a budget, right? Those things don't come out of thin air. And if I can make one plea, if you're ever going to work with your partners, myself, or any of the others that you meet, please don't wait till the last minute. Treat it the same way you do your IM. And I know how challenging that is, but I was just working with a PI yesterday from University of Delaware. We had a conference call about their broader impact. And she said something really interesting. She's an early career person just working on a postdoc now. And she said, this proposal that I'm writing, I was assigned the broader impact on my team. I'm in charge of it. I'm also in charge of this other intellectual merit thread of it, but I'm the one that's leading the broader impact. And that might have been the first time that I heard that. Usually it's a distributed responsibility among the PIs, unless it's a center. A lot of times centers have somebody who's in charge. But this was more of a basic research grant, and I was really impressed, right, that they took it that serious and were assigning her the responsibility to collect their collective thoughts on what it should be and come up with a plan that was really robust and reflective of their wishes as a group to impact society and benefit society. So that's just something I think is really valuable to think about, and something that I'm starting to see a shift, in how PIs think about that and taking it a lot more serious. Not only because it's the stick and the carrot, right? Not only because NSF is saying you should, but also I think a lot of young early career folks really want to, right? Especially when we talk about climate change, right? We have to do good things, right? To kind of stem the tide of some of the bad things that are happening in the environment. And this is one way we can use that as a tool, right? Use broader impacts as a tool to do that. So those are my 5 things to know. The last thing I have for you in this section, and then we're going to transition into thinking more deeply about partnerships. And like I said, you're going to hear from this amazing panel that we have and talk a little bit more about what partnerships are all about. But I'd just like to take a minute and hear from you. If anyone would want to kind of shout out, what did they get out of today, just to give us a sense. Is there anything that's still confusing? Has your thinking about broader impact shifted into a new direction? Are there ways you can use these tools that you're willing to share? I'd just like to hear from a couple of you of how this went, so that we can kind of get a feel. I do have a microphone here somewhere where we can pass it around. Oliver's volunteering. Anybody want to share? Yeah. What's that?
Hello, is it on?
No.
No.
Press the
Can
button.
you hear me?
Press the button.
Okay, my name is Osa. I'm from the geography department. Maybe it just needs to be turned on. Okay, here we go. Awesome. All right. I really love this question. What part of your research do you really want to share? Because I haven't thought about that before. And that kind of was different than, well, I actually realized that's what I'm sharing, to be honest. But I hadn't like connected the two, which was interesting to me. And it's my love of the environment, the landscapes that I work in. But what I wanted to ask, I just want to say, I've used the broader impacts wizards a couple of times actually for writing grants, and I find it very useful, and I really think it's improved my proposals. They review the broader impacts review well, even if I don't get funding. But one thing I find super hard, and you sort of said we don't have enough time, but I do think like that assessment piece, I feel like that's where it just sort of falls apart at the end. And I'd be interested to know, like, I mean, to some degree it has to be, I suppose, a conversation with your partners, because whatever you do, it's gonna, how you assess is gonna depend on kind of what you do, right? But I don't know, like, are there in-house experts at Rutgers? Who are they? Just knowing that would be so useful. And I don't know if some of the panelists have examples of, I mean, even outside experts, I don't even know where to start. Where are these people called? Like, do they have a name? Like, is this like a profession that you can like look up somewhere? So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you for a really nice workshop.
Thank you, Osa. Yes, those people do have names, and there are a great number of independent consultants that are happy to work with us on those kinds of things that are independent of the university. Your question about in-house university, we don't have a center for assessment at Rutgers, which is a shame. University of Delaware does. They have a very robust one, and they're happy to work, outside of their own home institution. So that's one thing I can tell you. But Oscar and I were talking last night about developing a portal site, and Oscar, this tells me even more that we need that, because I can put a list together of really great folks that I've worked with over the years and what I've used them for, and that can be, to your point, a great place to start, right? So we will work on that. Oscar and I have been talking about that for a couple of weeks now, about developing a more robust website for everyone. So I can definitely share with that. In terms of in-house, I can also tell you that Cooperative Extension is trying to get a position going in evaluation. That would be also really, really useful for all of us if we can get that position approved and hired. So it's a deficit that we're well aware of, but one that that I hope to work on in the future for sure. Thank you for that. That's very true what you said. Anybody else want to share thoughts, reflections of any kind?
Thank you, Janice. Do I need to stand up or can I say?
Oh yeah, say what.
So this was very exciting and very succinct. And the video that Saj made, did you make it? It was that, in terms of broader impact, that was very, very clear. I think from the long journey that we've had making science stories here, where initially it was measuring reach, how many people did you reach with a story, to then when we did Antarctic Edge, it was learning and understanding of climate change. So when we did Antarctic Edge, we measured how audiences increased their sense of trust in science, to now it's not just learning, but empowerment. So how can we empower society? How can we increase or attract people to STEM fields? So that trajectory has really changed in terms of the goal in impact, in measuring societal impact. So that seems very inspiring and exciting, and you communicated it well. So thank you for that, but that's what I noticed.
Yeah, thank you, Dina. Yeah. So that's something we can get into. If you all want to do a more specific evaluation workshop, that's certainly something we can dig into, because what Dina just talked about is really important. Going from demographics and numbers, outputs, if you will, to more of an impact-oriented mindset, right? So inputs and impacts are really different things, and that's a really, really great way to kind of frame it. And typically we think of that evolution, right? Just going from bean counting to more of a substantive look at what does this mean to people is really, really valuable. And we can talk more about that again. You know, we wanted today just to give you this overview and to get you together, but we're hoping this is not the end, right, of how we collaborate together. So thank you for that, Dina. Anybody else want to share one more reflection before we move on to partnerships? Yes?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Dean Rivera. I'm a new professor here. I study atmospheric chemistry, which impacts everybody, so the air we breathe, right? So, I tend to think about broader impacts as a passive part of my research because if we study air, it will impact people, right? But now, seeing you talk, I think about it more actively, like how can we, actively reach people and share our understanding of the research, which is like a switch, right? It's just a small thing to switch, but I think it's important in the process of grant writing, so I want to share that.
Yeah, what a fantastic reflection. I feel good that you made that switch. That's exactly what I was hoping for. So great, I'm glad that happened for you. It definitely is an active process, right? And the more active you make it, the more fun it will be, and the more rewarding you'll find it, and the more integrated it will be with your research. So thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you're here and that was helpful. So what I'd like to do now, if it's okay with everybody, is switch gears and talk a little bit about building effective partnerships, because this is really the core of what Broader Impacts is all about, right? Is who do you work with and how do you together make an impact, right? So another little thing for you to do to kind of help you think about this, and this is a simple little exercise. I want you to take a moment to think about a time that you collaborated with someone professionally. Could be professionally or even privately, like your own personal life. It doesn't have to be professional, but better if it is. What were you trying to accomplish? What about the partnership was positive or productive? And what did you find challenging about it? So just think about, it could be last week, it could be 3 years ago, right? Just think about a partnership that you can really remember that was vivid in your memory, and answer those questions real quick. It should be on your little worksheet, so just take a moment to do that. And I'll tell you what we're going to do with that in a minute. Everybody's got an idea? Jot it down. But I'm going to ask Oliver, if you could again, I'm going to ask a couple of you to share a little bit about what you wrote down. What's an example for you of productive partnership? And what was good about it, what was bad about it, what was challenging? Anybody want to share a little story? Oh, there's one.
I'm happy to share. I'm Pam McAwee in the Department of Human Ecology. A lot of my grants are to do research abroad, internationally, and so I have partnered with NGOs to be part both of the research process, but also to convey the outcomes of the research to different audiences, whether it's educational institutions or even policymakers. It's really hard to build NGOs into NSF grants because they're not allowed to charge overhead. They're not allowed to do a lot of the things that we get to do. So getting the funding for them is really, really hard. I've had successes in that part of partnering with NGOs is building their own research capacity. And some of the partners that I've had in Vietnam have successfully done that, and I think it's increased their ability to lobby on environmental issues because they're very research-based now. They can share the science part of it much more strongly. But I have to say, looking back now, all the extra time it took me to do capacity building for them, so training in research methods, having them be part of the research, talking about evaluation of that, having workshops, that was probably 3 or 4 research papers that I didn't write. And if we don't change our evaluation metrics here at the university, why would we ask people to do that? It's a real problem.
Thank you for sharing that, Pam. That was great. Anybody else want to share a story before we? That was Oscar.
So I guess, you've been talking about it. You and I have been partnered for 30 years. Yeah. But I think what I really like about the partnership is I focus on my science, but then I get help from a professional. And you'll find that sometimes some of the most gratifying events I've spoken at have been ones you set up. I'm thinking of like when we had all the schools from New Jersey down in Princeton, and I talked to them. But you also pushed me to try things I wouldn't expect. So you had me speak in New York City at the short story public reading. That was the most humbling, kind of horrible experience in the world because I am such an amateur compared to the professional storytellers. And so that's something now I want to focus on, and I do on the side. Yeah, so I think learning what you suck at is really important. Yeah.
You don't suck at it. You're gifted
Well,
at it.
compared to these people.
Different benchmarks, right? Thank you. That's great. Yeah, so the reason I asked you to do that is because we've all had experiences partnering, right, in different capacities, within individuals, with large groups like Pam talked about, internationally. We've all had these experiences. So this isn't a new idea for you, right, to think about. But it's really important in how you frame it in your mind, right, and how you think about how you're going to partner with people. So I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Bad Partner, okay, and listen a little bit to what he has to say in this interview.
I was thinking I could work at some local schools. Can you find a school here in the city that I can list as my partner and you can tell them I'll come in and give a lecture or something?
Let's back up. What are the reasons a school would like to partner with you?
Look, my research is extremely important. I'm sure there are many schools that would want me to teach kids about how important it is.
I meant, what's in it for them?
Exposure to my work?
Exposure is a benefit to you. What would the school get out of it?
I don't understand the question.
Before we see how...
All right. So did that fit your model in your mind of what a good partnership looked like? Probably not, right? Yeah. So this is you kind of want to avoid this top-down ivory tower kind of vibe, right? When you're working with partners. I mean, that's the key message here, right? And you've all had experiences, hopefully, with good partnerships that you want to draw on. What did I do in that situation that I can do again, right? To make sure that things that work. So let's take a quick step back and talk about what a partnership is, right? Because then once we have the characteristics, maybe we can think more deeply about how to do them better, right? So I've been really blessed to work with Dr. Gordon Kingsley. He's at Georgia Tech University. And he was hired back in the COSI days. There were 10 centers that I mentioned earlier that were funded around the country. And NSF brought in this partnership expert because each center had dozens of partnerships, right, that they had to manage. So they brought Gordon in to help us think that through. What do good partnerships look like? So Gordon defines partnerships in this way, and I won't read it to you, but you can see it's the patterns of communication, right, and shared goals are really the key words there that you wanna pull out. And kind of, if I summarize this in a more simple way, it would be co-development, right? Thinking about what they want, what you want, and figuring out the best way to move forward. And as Pam pointed out, overcome barriers, right? And there are lots of them, of how we work together, right? And that's operational and sometimes related to just work agreements, right? So this is Gordon's definition. He's published broadly on this. He actually was the guy who also assessed all of the millions and millions and millions of dollars that NSF spent on the Math Science Partnerships Initiative back in the early aughts. So he was very involved in that and has done a lot of work in this space. And what I want to do is just show you a 3-minute clip of a video that he created for us on collaborative partnerships. This video is really long. I highly recommend you go back and watch the whole thing. I'm only going to show you the first 3 minutes for sake of time, but Gordon is amazing because he uses marriage as a metaphor for how partnerships work. And I think you'll appreciate this first clip here to help you kind of think about what they are.
When we think about partnerships, and particularly about STEM education partnerships, one of the things that we have observed over numerous evaluations over the years is that partnerships have a variety of different starting points. And one of the ways we've developed to try to explain these starting points is to use a marriage metaphor. we developed this idea just as a way to help folks understand that your partnership may begin in a wide variety of different spaces. Now, your starting point doesn't necessarily predict whether your partnership will be a success or a failure, but it does give us a good understanding of the types of transaction costs and experiences that you're going to have along the way in trying to establish a successful STEM education partnership. One of the things that I would like for us to think through is first, just what are partnerships? So oftentimes, the idea of partnership got a lot of association with mom and apple pie. What could be more positive than the idea of a partnership? However, the formation of partnerships is difficult, and it requires people to have a deep understanding of the ways in which they need to work between the varieties of cooperation and collaboration you're going to experience. And there's really three key ideas that distinguish a partnership from just any other form of contractual relationship. The first is that the partnership will have some mutuality in exchange, and that means that each of the partners has some vested interest in each other. They rely upon each other. There's something of value that's going to be given back and forth across the relationship. Oftentimes we find when we go into a STEM education partnership, particularly when there's a university and K-12 schools involved in it, that idea has not been thought through very carefully. And in fact, oftentimes there's a notion that the K-12 schools will get something to benefit from the university, but the university doesn't think carefully enough about the benefits that could accrue to them from the K-12 schools. A second is that the individual partners have to get something out of it. They have to have some enhancement of themselves as a standalone identity of the partner. And so that idea also is not thought through. People will think through, this is a partnership, I loved being associated with these folks, but they don't necessarily think about, well, how do I personally benefit from this particular thing? And then the last is that partnerships are collaborative processes. That means there's a level of engagement that is a bit more than just a handshake contractual agreement. This is something where you expect to have interaction with each other over the lifetime of the partnership. That doesn't mean that the methods and modes of the interactions are going to stay the same throughout the life of the partnership. In fact, it'll probably change as the partnership matures and the activities develop. So that
Okay, so I'm going to cut it off there, because I really wanted to focus on those things, right? This idea that there has to be a mutuality in exchange, that you have to have the enhancement of the standalone identity of the partner, and then finally that there has to be a collaborative process, right? There has to be something in it for everyone to benefit, and that process has to be co-development. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of big item tips, and then we're going to have our panel come up and dive in a little bit deeper into what these things mean. So let's talk about determining the purpose of a partnership, because that's probably one of the most important things. Why am I partnering with this person? And to avoid the Dr. Bad Partner scenario there, because they just think it's wonderful, right? What I do, right? We want to think about it more deeply than that. And we want to use this, this matrix, right? So this is some research that I pulled together from Gordon's work and others that kind of help you develop sort of this matrix, right, of understanding. And we've done our homework in social science research to try to think about what these dimensions are and how they can help you think about developing your research partnerships, right? So let's start with the working together framework, right, that you see along the bottom there. So let's talk about what it means to coordinate. Coordinating means having each partner contribute work and resources, right? But we're not necessarily creating anything new together. We're coordinating together, but not necessarily creating new things together. And they're supporting usually a mutual objective, right? When we cooperate, we're doing something a little different. We're exchanging relevant information and resources in support of each other's goals rather than a shared goal. And that's really important, right? And it usually arises from an individual and not part of a collective team effort, right? So that's really important distinction from coordinating. And then finally, there's the collaborative mode, right? That's where partners are joining forces, right? They have a structure for commitment to a shared goal, shared responsibility. They have mutual authority, which is key. They're all accountable to success, and they all share the risks and rewards, right? So that's really different. That scale really shows you a difference in purpose, right? And finding the right fit is really, really important. Now let's look at the other axis. So when we think about a partnership purpose, what do we mean, right? A partnership can be strategic. It can be, I'm partnering with this person or this group in order to reduce the time and energy lost in duplicative efforts, right? And we're dependent on each other, and we kind of function with limited trust and interaction, but we're rowing in the same direction, right? That's a strategic partnership. Learning, on the other hand, is where you're looking to obviously learn something new from a partner. You're gaining new insights and knowledge from each other. You're co-producing new tools. You're trying to inspire each other to innovate together. But you might not rely on each other to do that. So that's the distinction there, right? You're working together, but you're not super reliant on one another. And honestly, most of the grants, especially center grants that I've worked on, are in that space, right? They're in that. We're all sort of parallel play like toddlers do, right? But we're learning from each other, but we're not necessarily dependent on each other. The last one is the toughest, and this is an NSF word, right, that you'll see a lot in solicitations, and that's transformational. What does it mean to be transformational? Well, that's where you're going for the gold ring, right? You're trying to bolster each partner's possibility of realizing their vision, and this is where you get the sum is greater than the parts, right? They're advocating and innovating, capacity building, they're developing tools together. This is kind of an intense level of partnership that's really trying to do big things. And I would argue that our RCEI is doing that, right? That is what this RCEI project's all about, is making things transformational, doing good, right? As you saw from Marjorie's slide. So that's just a personal aside of what I think about when I think of RCEI. So what does this mean, right? How do I find the right fit from all of those definitions in that matrix, right? And I just want to argue that one is not better than the other, right? They're not better. It's about finding the right fit. It's about making sure that you have found the right chemistry for you in terms of how you need to do things, right? And you'll notice that these things are kind of correlated, right? These two axes are not really independent of one another. So by definition, a transformative partnership is not going to happen through coordination, right? Because coordination, you don't create anything new together. Transformation defines that as creating something new, right? So these things are sort of correlated, and you really have to think through where you find yourself in this matrix. And they take varying degrees of time and effort, right, to be able to do that. Typically, the transformative ones are more intense, right? They're more time intensive. But that doesn't mean they're better than the others, the strategic partnerships, for example. I would just encourage you to think about this in terms of finding the right fit, right? That's the most important message here, is to think through the right fit. So, given that information, right, and understanding the mutuality of exchange and all those things that Gordon talked about, I want you to think about trying to be a model partner, right, on your own side of the fence, right, if you're bringing two partners together over the fence. And these are Gordon's top 10 or top 8 tips. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but I'll just highlight some of the ones that I think are really important. Number 5, for me, is the most important one. Listening is key, and as Pam talked about, listening to your partner helps you understand pitfalls, as she talked about. Not understanding that they can't charge overhead is a real pitfall, right? And that makes it more difficult to be a good partner if you don't understand these things, right? So really listening and being equitable and fair about that. That obviously relates to budgets, right? Which you also have to be equitable and fair about. Marissa Staffen, who you're going to meet in a little while, and I talk about this all the time, right? Of how do we make our budgets reflective of equity and fairness, right? In terms of how we budget money. Pam talked about that as well. So those are really 2 things that are not easy to tackle, but really important to think about. Researching and knowing your partner. You saw in Dr. Bad Partner, just find a school for me that, I can just come and do my thing, right? Now, understanding your partner and what that school or whatever it might be, whatever partner you choose, what they really need and want is really, really important. So those are just some highlights. I recommend you go back and look at the full video if you wanted to hear more from Gordon on the marriage metaphors. They're actually really fun. He does 7 different marriage metaphors, shotgun wedding, and all these different things that tells you about different types of partnerships. It's a fun little video. we've talked a lot about this, and Osa brought it up, but metrics of success for your partnership are really, really key. Knowing how you're going to be successful, right? And the wizard has a little bit of information on that, but as we've already identified, there's lots of room for improvement here in building our capacity here at Rutgers to do this. But thinking through what your metrics of success looks like, you know, just simply answering the question yourself. This will be successful if this happens, right? Your own sort of ideas and influence of what you want to have happen as a result of your work. And, you know, looking for sustainable outcomes. You're going to hear from our partners today who are going to maybe talk about this a little bit more, because sustainability in partnerships is really, really important. And we'll, you know, that is something that's kind of another long-term challenge with keeping funding going and keeping our partners not feeling like they're being used, right? Really, really important. I'm going to just say this, and others, again, are going to comment on this more broadly, but being really intentional about writing your plan with your partner and not for your partner is really, really key. This also speaks to the co-development aspect of it. So those, again, are my top 4 tips. That we could do a whole day on just partnerships, but I wanted to give you sort of that rough overview. And I want to definitely, you know, give a lot of time to this amazing panel. I just want to say how grateful I am for all of them to be here to offer their perspective. Before we dive into the panel, though, I'm really pleased to introduce to you, and I think she's here somewhere, saw her come in, Dr. Marika Dunn from the Office of Research, who is going to tell you a little bit about corporate partnerships, because companies as collaborators is another kind of facet of all of this, right? That I've asked her to comment on. She's been kind enough to share some of her experiences. Would you want to come up and?
I'm very short. Hi everyone, it's nice to see some familiar faces. If you don't know me, my name is Marika Dunn, and I oversee strategic research alliances in the Office for Research. And the way we define them here at Rutgers are strategic alliances, external partners to external partner relationships that cross multiple chancellor units. And so in that we work with federal research labs as well as corporate partners. And so this slide is, I'm going to take maybe 1 or 2 minutes to talk about this, but I do want to just share some perspectives from my own experiences, and I'm so glad that we have other people that have worked with industry or are part of industry in the room to hopefully back me up, but please challenge if I've said anything that maybe is not of your perspective. So I think, first of all, I'd like to just see a show of hands. How many of you that are researchers currently have or have in the past had partnerships in your research with industries in some sort? Okay, awesome. And how many of you may have been industry curious, but may have had some preconceived notions or some feelings of doubt of partnering? So the first thing I will say is that all core characteristics that Janice had mentioned of partnerships apply to companies as well. Whether it's a large company or a small one, mutuality, enhancement, and collaborative processes are all part of forming those relationships. And then one thing that I have found of particular importance in working with industry partners versus, say, federal research labs or K-12 institutions is that the mission of an industry partner is not necessarily, the end game is not necessarily education, unlike, say, a K-12 partner. And therefore, it's really important to have alignment in a number of different areas. A company's business interests, budget allocations, fiscal timeframe is essential. There might be industry partners that say no just by virtue of the fact that what you're doing is incredibly interesting research that just does not match up with their business plan. It also could be that they would love to work with you in 2 years because that's when they have to redo their fiscal planning. And so it's really critical for researchers who would like to work with industry partners, not just say in sponsored research to work with them on gaining sponsored research, but also even in partnerships with NSF and others, is to understand what those companies' business interests, values, and fiscal timeframes are. It's also really important to play the long game. My experience has been that that working with industry partners and researchers in the R&D section of different companies is a matter of starting those small relationships, small projects, small collaborations that can lead to a building of trust, and success begets success over time. So especially for industry partners that I've found, that building that trust is essential, and it's really important to think of something in a longer term. And the last thing I would say, and this is, I think, something that I work with quite a bit in strategic alliances, where we're looking with external partners, not just in the research space, but also thinking with them about internship possibilities, recruitment, talent development, is beyond the work that you bring at research. What kind of assets can you collaborate with them on in terms of their own interest in training or talent recruitment? They have their own interests, and some of that might be work that you or your lab can bring to them as well. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Bringing in the experts here. Thank you, Marika, so much. On that note, I thought it'd be really helpful if you heard from an industry partner at this point as an example of what Marika just talked about. And this is one that I've been really blessed to work with more recently as a new partner. And I think one that I think is really great to talk about in terms of the RCEI mission of how we work with industry. So I'd like to introduce you Diana Glinos, who's here from Blue Point Wind. But I just asked her to kind of give us a general overview of her thoughts on corporate partnerships and how she's approaching that here at Rutgers and maybe in other places. Would you like to come on up?
That's good. Awesome. Hi, everyone. So my name is Diana Glinos. I'm a fisheries liaison for Blue Point Wind, so a lot of the work that I do is sort of marine and fisheries related. But just sort of a little bit about the project. We're an offshore wind developer in the New York Bight. We secured our lease in 2022, so we're sort of early stages, but progressing as a project. Our anticipated capacity is 1.7 gigawatts, which is about enough to power 900,000 homes, with an estimated emissions reduction of about 5.07 metric tons annually. Just a little bit about our location on the map. We're 53 nautical miles off New Jersey and 38 off of New York. And then, so just a little bit about what community outreach we've been doing in New Jersey. We've been investing in local organizations through memberships, event sponsorships, and funding in supportive programming. We also partner with organizations like KidWind and Students to Science on renewable energy programming and STEM outreach. And we also work with multiple chambers of commerce in the state on sort of workforce development and sort of preparing folks for offshore wind industry opportunities. Just a little bit about, actually, sorry, I have one other thing. So sort of Blue Point's goal in partnerships is to build an ecosystem where sort of the folks that we're working with can connect to each other. So even after partnerships, we've connected folks to each other who can keep working together. A little bit on marine and fisheries, sort of my realm. I work with commercial and recreational fishing communities to identify priorities for each sector and sort of best practices for how to share use of the ocean and of the resources, but we do this through maintaining relationships directly with industry. We go to a lot of expos. This was one this past weekend, just over in Edison, and then also like meetings with regulatory bodies, research organizations, etc. But and just one note on collaborative science. Offshore wind developers in New Jersey and federally are required to do both pre and post-construction ecological monitoring and ecosystem work. So that's something that we're starting to look more into as sort of the project progresses. In New Jersey, there's also a research and monitoring initiative specific for ecosystem work, which is a great opportunity for collaborative science with both fishing communities, offshore wind industry, and research organizations such as Rutgers. But yeah, that's just a little bit about Blue Point. Thank you.
So one of the interesting things about Blue Point that I think fits with this discussion is when I first met them as a team, they said, we're looking to have our offshore wind work in about 10 years into the future, right? 10 to 15 years in the future. So they asked us to look, Chad and Marissa and myself, we're going to meet in a minute, asked us to look at 6th graders because they were their future workforce. So working with 6th graders now will pay off in the workforce when they're ready for them in the future. And I just thought that was really strategic and really spoke to what Marika just talked about, right? About how does this fit in with their business plan and how is their benefits to society work that they're doing, you know, sort of align, like Marika was talking about, with their business plan and being ready for that 15-year mark, right, of having a future workforce that's renewable energy literate and can help them build the future of wind energy, right? So I just think that's really cool and really underscores what Marika talked about. So now's the time you've all been waiting for. Stop listening to me yammer, and now you get to meet these amazing panel that we've put together. So I'm going to ask them to come up and sit at the table up here. And what we're going to do is each panelist is going to provide a one-slide overview of their program and how they think about broader impacts and societal benefits from their point of view, from their institutional point of view. And again, the purpose of this is to give you insight as to who you might partner with. Remember, this is the plasma membrane. You guys can come on up. So this is the plasma membrane, right, of the folks that can help you make those connections like that we talked about earlier. So I'm really excited that you're going to meet them all, and I'm super grateful that they're here. And Oliver, I just need that microphone. If you want to pass it down to Chad and Marissa, they're going to kick us off. Sure. You can sit. Absolutely. Awesome.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be here today. My name is Chad Ripperger, and I'm with Rutgers 4-H along with Marissa Staffen. And 4-H is the youth development part of Rutgers Cooperative Extension. Cooperative Extension is extending the university to the people where they live and work, so you will find Cooperative Extension offices in county facilities all throughout the state in all 21 counties. What we do in 4-H, we have clubs, we have school programs, we have after-school programs, we have summer camps, we have pre-college programs that we do with kids from kindergarten through 1 year out of high school, so that's our audience. There's a group of us that have chosen to focus on STEM education, and so we work with about 7 counties, mostly from where I am in Mercer County up to North Jersey and some of the more urban areas of the state, to focus on STEM education. And not only just to focus on STEM education, but to really focus on kids who are underrepresented in STEM majors and careers. One of the big reasons we do that is because we know that it's a lot more difficult for a kid in the heart of Trenton or Newark to develop a really strong STEM identity than it is for kids in some of our suburban communities that are also in our counties of responsibility. So one of the reasons it's hard for them to develop a STEM identity, obviously, is because they don't have as many mentors in their families, in their neighborhoods, in their schools, etc. So we try to fill that gap by connecting them to the wealth of resources that we have here at the university. So in all of our programs with STEM education, we focus on how can we build STEM identity in these young people, help them, support them in that effort by connecting them to people like you, to researchers, to scientists. One of our signature initiatives is our Rutgers 4-H STEM Ambassadors program, which we have been doing for 16 years. And that is focused on high school students. And we bring them to Rutgers, New Brunswick for a week to kick off that program every summer. And they spend time working with Rutgers undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, faculty. We get them into the eco-preserve. We get them doing field work at Rutgers Gardens. We take them to the Math and Science Learning Center. But most importantly, we connect them with scientists like you here at Rutgers, New Brunswick, so that they can have those conversations and learn about your path, learn that your path maybe wasn't as straight as they thought it might have been, and just exposure. So many times we hear them say, I didn't even realize that was a field of study. I didn't realize that was something that I could do, all right? So Marissa's gonna talk about this as well, but we've had people like Dr. Rick Lathrop, Dr. Sarah Campbell, they've been with us for the last 16 years doing this work. They do research projects with our kids. They get them involved in their lab, they get them involved with their PhD students, and it's been just a life-changing experience for the kids that we work with. Real quick before I pass it on, like I said, I'm in Mercer County, so I'm responsible for 4-H in all of Mercer County, but with a special focus on the city of Trenton and our partners there. We work with Boys and Girls Club, the Y, Urban Promise, Mill Hill Child and Family Development, all of these organizations in the community to partner with them to work with their kids and get them involved. In addition to the STEM Ambassador Program, for the last 11 years, we've had our Tomorrow's Innovators Program, where we get 4th to 7th graders every Saturday throughout the school year in our office for 2.5 hours, exposing them to science and engineering. And then we've created basically a continuum where they can start with us in 4th grade and go all the way through. So in middle school, 7th and 8th grade, they join our STEM Explorers program, 6-week, very intensive summer program. Imagine having your kid in a 6-week camp, but that's what they do. And we focus on a different STEM theme each week. And then those kids, after they graduate out of the STEM Explorers, can become STEM ambassadors and contribute to their community. Last thing I want to say, we have people like Allison, who started in 4th grade. Now she's a STEM ambassador. Now she's teaching in our Tomorrow's Innovators program. We have people like Jeremy in the lower right, started with us in 4th grade, awkward, shy, boy, wasn't sure why he was there, went all the way through the program and is now teaching in our Tomorrow's Innovators program. And that's what we like to see. So if you're interested in learning more over lunch, I'm happy to sit and talk with you. Thank you.
Hi. So I'll just add a couple more little points about ways that you can partner with us in Extension. I serve kind of the North Jersey urban areas. Mainly I'm based out of Newark, but we serve the greater Newark, Patterson, Jersey City areas. And like Chad mentioned, we do a bunch of different delivery modes in schools, with school partners, out of school time, after school, and summertime programming. I can focus a little bit today on some of the opportunities we have to partner with undergraduate and graduate students. We work with them very closely in most of our programs to serve as mentors for the young people that we serve. The first picture is an example of our undergraduate students. A lot of them come from the Department of Urban Ed, and computer science, who are teaching computer science at our Jersey City school partner site. The next picture is an example of an out-of-school time program where we have students, our undergraduate students, hosting a science fair for community members. So we like to do that once a month and bring young people from grade 4 through 8 to participate in science stations and get excited about science. And then another example is we have our graduate students. They lead our summertime youth urban farm programs, and they teach young people and get them excited about food systems work, actually work with them in the garden, and have them create community action plans to address some of their local food security issues. What I find most beneficial to having connection to our undergraduate and graduate students is a lot of times they look like the community that we're working with, they're from the community that we work with, and they're just cool. It's a lot easier to have them lead a program than, say, some of our older faculty members. It's often when we do program evaluation, one of the first things that's ranked most positively, besides the science that our young people are learning, is the mentorship that they have with their college students. Here's Diana.
Anything else you want to add, Diana?
Not at this moment, but I
I am Brielle Kachelik. I'm at the Center for Math, Science, and Computer Education. Basically, we were created before STEM existed, so that's why we have the long name. We're part of the Division of Continuing Studies as well. My colleague, Eddie Cohen, was going to be here too. He's the assistant director. And then our director is David Chernoff, who also is part of the School of Psychology. But we work in the K-12 world, working with both students and teachers throughout the whole state of New Jersey. So we go in and do professional development and training in the STEM fields. We also work with the students in doing problem-based learning and making and design thinking. We focus in the areas of STEM, so looking at the NGSS science standards, also anything with Open SciEd curriculum. We have started going into a lot with climate change as well. You may know that New Jersey came out with specific standards for the K-12 to teach climate change in all subject areas. So it's integrated within world language and health and computer science and design thinking. They're currently still working on the English and math, but all the other subject areas have it. So a lot of schools have been reaching out for training and subject matter experts to help them integrate the climate change into their curriculum for it. We also have helped with some different grants, and we've gotten some grants in engineering, and we did one with Girls Who Make with focusing on Hispanic middle school girls and getting them interested in engineering. And we did a whole year program with them, and we brought them to the makerspace here on Livingston campus for the students to see that and then interact with the engineering club, the Hispanic one that they have here as well with the undergrad students. We've also done some stuff with adult with autism in the makerspace, so that's another area we focus on for it as well. And then we also run a graduate program in maker education for teachers for it. So those are some of the areas that we focus on. And then the photos are different trainings we've done with students in the classroom. We were doing stuff with lantern flies with them. We have done some professional developments at wineries and orchards throughout New Jersey. Again, focusing, that was with the lantern flies as well. And then we, with Janice and Marjorie and Carrie, we actually did a climate workshop with a little under 100 teachers last year as well. And the governor's wife, Tammy Murphy, came too, because the climate change initiative is a big push with her too. Thank you.
Morning again. I'm Marjorie Kaplan, and in addition to my work as Associate Director of the Rutgers Climate and Energy Institute, I co-direct the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center, which was created in 2020 by state law to help New Jersey adapt, mitigate, and prepare for a changing climate. Our three main avenues to achieving this mission are 1, applied research and analysis, 2, tools and technical guidance, and 3, outreach and education. So a few of the examples I'll highlight under number 1, our covers of reports and assessments. We produce an annual State of the Climate report for New Jersey. We will be conducting our 3rd Science and Technical Advisory panel report on sea level rise for the state. And we recently led stakeholder engagement. We do a lot of that. And this one, we also included a low-income and disadvantaged community benefits analysis, and with Lori's Center, a workforce planning analysis for 6 sectors to help New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection develop its priority climate action plan, which is a big precursor to them bringing in a lot of federal money to implement mitigation actions in the state. With respect to number 2, on tools and technical guidance, NJ Adapt is a suite of data visualization and planning tools that have a wealth of New Jersey-specific information, from prepackaged information statewide, as well as for every municipality in the state of New Jersey for less sophisticated users, and it allows more sophisticated or inquisitive users to query and dive deeper into specific data sets. We conduct climate-related hazard vulnerability analyses for municipalities, and we provide technical assistance and capacity building for community-based organizations through our Transformative Climate Communities programs. A lot of the work we do is working with graduate students through our Climate Corps, and some of the students are now working with us on the outside. They work in federal agencies, they work in state agencies, and they work in local government, and they work in the consulting world. So like the story Chad and Marissa talk about, we get to see our students out there as professionals, and it's really fun because we end up working with them and sometimes for them. It's kind of funny. Finally, we educate the public through our Climate Academy webinars. We conduct targeted trainings and forums on a wide range of issues, many in partnership with New Jersey-based organizations, like here the New Jersey Hospital Association is one example, and with many other centers here at Rutgers and several of the folks on this panel, and we provide many other resources on climate change and New Jersey. And I just think one of the other messages I'll make is that it's not like you have to work with any one of us. We all work across with each other as well.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lori Harrington. I'm currently the acting executive director of the Heldrick Center for Workforce Development. We're housed within the Boston School. We are a policy institute dedicated to raising the effectiveness and strengthening the workforce through education and training programs. We've been around for about 26 years, and we have a full-time staff of about 30 professionals from cross disciplines: economics, labor relations, business administration, and public policy. Our goal statement is that we are an independent source of analysis for reform and innovation in policy making, and we employ cutting-edge research and evaluation methods to identify best practices in workforce development, education, and employment policy. Our real objective at the Heldrick Center is to use data-informed education, training, and workforce development decision-making for policymakers and individuals at the state, the national levels, even the local levels, and in the private sector as well. And producing cutting-edge, generalizable research to improve and strengthen education, training, and workforce development programs for job seekers. In doing that, I identify best practices, we use technology and information, and we transform workforce through research. Our center offers evaluations of workforce and education programs. We do research on promising workforce practices, and we promote workforce and economic development. To achieve our mission and conduct our work, and the reason we're here today is that we help to build workforce and economic development partnerships to find workforce solutions, and we do that between and among industry sector partners, between employers and the education community, across state agencies, across local workforce areas throughout New Jersey, and even across institutional areas here at Rutgers and at other post-secondary academic institutions. And just to give you an example, I'll mention two projects that we are either working on or we are proposing to work on to sort of highlight our work. And the first one is we're working with the Middlesex County. As we all know, the Rutgers Cancer Institute is coming to New Brunswick. It's going to bring a lot of jobs in healthcare to the Middlesex County area. So we're working with the Robert Wood Johnson Healthcare Workforce Partnership, which is a partnership of Middlesex College, Middlesex County, Robert Wood Johnson, to identify the jobs that are going to be most in demand, the most that Robert Wood Johnson needs to fill, helping connect them to Middlesex College to develop training and create that supply pipeline, and bringing together the partners. And our role in that is to help facilitate that process, but also to document that process and learn from it so that we can share that information out to other sector partnerships. And then the second project I'll just mention really quickly is actually in the proposal stage, but we're really optimistic. And so that is a fairly large proposal to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to help build the workforce that's going to be needed to tackle a lot of the climate resiliency projects that are going to hopefully be happening in New Jersey. So in that proposal, the Heldrick Center is a key player in creating a statewide partnership, but also these regional-based partnerships of not just the science community and the education community and the employer community, which are all really important, but also a focus on the community-based organizations that are trusted partners of untapped pools of talent. Places where, communities of workers that are traditionally left out of certain types of occupations and that we want to bring in. So working with those community-based organizations to reach these untapped pools and communities of workers, potential workers and training participants, but also to address their wraparound, their needs, and their wraparound services that will help them complete their training programs and support them in their early days of employment so that they can be successful in these new, potentially high-quality job and industry sectors.
All right, and good morning or afternoon, everyone, if we've reached that point, not quite yet. My name is Jennifer Senek, and I'm the director of the Center for Urban Policy Research at the Boston School. We have 5 main practice areas there: the built environment and green building, infrastructure networks, environmental analysis and communications, urban policy, and local government research. The latter, or it is through the latter practice area that we also provide our training offerings, leadership development for public and private industry, and other types of training programs. I should mention as well, because I think it fits within this general context, that I'm one of the founders and an advisor to the Rutgers new minor on disability studies, which is housed at the Blaustein School. It represents a partnership, actually among 3 schools at Rutgers. It's something I'm very proud of and very committed to. What I think is shown, oops, no, it's not the new slide. Oh, sorry. So the slide I had prepared depicted a number of activities that we've been convening with K-12 partners who are residents of the Housing Authority City of Elizabeth, public housing, for now the last decade. We work there on topics related to air quality, both ambient and indoor air quality, health and adaptive behavior. And as I've heard from 4-H colleagues down the road here, we've had the pleasure of working with many of these same young residents now for 7 to 8 years, seeing them evolve and develop. We've also been fortunate over this same approximate decade to have a near constant stream of federal funding for community-based participatory research engaged with the housing authority there, as well as with all housing authorities in the state through the New Jersey chapter of the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials, and a local environmental advocacy nonprofit based in Elizabeth called Groundwork Elizabeth. That funding has come from the National Science Foundation. We have a project running now. It's a civic project. We had an NSF Heat Waves Award previously from HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Agency, and I'm also the PI on a recent grant from EPA that will continue our work in Elizabeth for the next 3 years. The kind of interventions are all co-created with residents at the Housing Authority, many of them focusing on providing some level of agency that Housing Authority residents can take to improve indoor air quality, whether those are adaptive behaviors or avoiding maladaptive behaviors, and also through the science. We've built out fairly extensive sensor networks, both outdoors and indoors. We, by the way, are providing this current grant, the residents that work with us, the ability to keep the sensors that we put into their apartments because they've begun to condition their behavior on them, and we feel like it would be unethical to take our equipment back. And these summer programs that we've been able to convene with the young residents are in part funded through the federal grants, but I want to additionally mention that we've been very fortunate to have a partner with Valley National Bank through their CRA funding, Community Reinvestment Act. You're probably aware, all financial institutions in the United States that taking deposits have been required since the 1980s to enact a Congress to give back money to the communities, and they do that by giving money philanthropically directly to CEOs and sometimes through universities, as in our case, we partner with CEOs. That funding, I call it my bridge funding, has been really instrumental in allowing us to do more translational research from our federal grants and sort of program these very usable co-created products on the ground. Not a lot of money, 15, 20, 25,000 a year, but I think it's a really important role for industry in kind of helping to like smooth out the ability to work with community partners in between the federal grants. And so I think that's mainly what I wanted to share. I guess one additional thing, for whatever reason, I've been tapped also for the last 7 to 8 years to serve as an advisor to First Lego competition, for those of you who are familiar with that, and also to bring Girl Scouts to Rutgers for tours, to learn things on different STEM topics. And I actually hope to be able to collaborate with some of my colleagues here today on that going forward. I'm happy to collaborate with any of you. I've worn many hats at Rutgers. I've been a student here. I completed my PhD here. I teach, and I'm a research director. So I can possibly give some insight, maybe, on how to get some things done. Thank you.
I'm Fred Roberts. I'm from the math department. I also direct something called the Cicada Center, a Command, Control, and Interoperability Center for Advanced Data Analysis, which is a mouthful. We were formed in 2006 when the Department of Homeland Security had a competition for University Centers of Excellence. So we were in one of the first rounds of that competition. We're a multidisciplinary center and a multi-institutional center, but very multidisciplinary. So when we had the site visit at Rutgers to determine whether we could win this center, the first question we were asked was to prove that Rutgers was really multidisciplinary. So we had to show that we collaborate across lots of disciplines. So the Homeland Security problems that we work on involve people from the law school, people from public health, people from computer science and statistics and mathematics, people from the business school, people from engineering, so SEPs, we're all over the place. So I wanted to emphasize a couple of the things that we do. We also partner in those projects, not only with the Department of Homeland Security and its components like the Coast Guard and FEMA and TSA, but also with what they call the Extended Homeland Security Enterprise, which means the private sector. So we just went yesterday to Maersk, a big shipping company, as the Innovation Center, which is an organization we've been collaborating with. We also collaborate with state agencies, especially New Jersey Homeland Security, but also Health and Human Services and the Attorney General's office and so on. And we also do large educational programs. We collaborate with school districts and so on. So I wanted to put on the screen here a number of things that were related to the major theme of climate change and energy as Homeland Security issues. So whether that's drought on the Mississippi River, which is affecting the fertilizer and the grain traffic, or whether it's drought in the Panama Canal, which is dramatically affecting shipping all over the world. Whether it's the changing ice conditions on the Great Lakes, or whether it's simply the overall effect of climate change on the supply chain. So the Department of Homeland Security has just formed a brand new Supply Chain Resilience Center, where climate change is one of its major areas of emphasis. We've also worked on Alaska and the effect of sea level rise on the indigenous community in various ways, including making them move their homes. But I should also mention that we do things other than climate change and energy. So we've worked a lot with every professional sports league, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, on security at large gathering places. We have partnerships with MetLife Stadium, for instance, and the Prudential Center. We've also worked on transportation facility security. We have a project going on right now with the Hoboken terminal of New Jersey Transit. And they're tremendous partners. And in fact, when we host the World Cup in soccer in 2026 at MetLife Stadium, there is a homeland security issue like crazy. We also work on maritime. We've worked a lot with the Coast Guard, whether it's fisheries law enforcement or whether it's where to locate their boats. And we've also worked in this very room, held the first ever maritime cybersecurity workshop. And then I should mention, in closing, the educational things that we do. So we develop modules, whether they're for K through 12 or undergraduates, things that you can use in the classroom that bring current Homeland Security topics back to your students. We welcome people who want to help us write those, and we welcome people who want to help us test them. And finally, we run something called Reconnect, which aims at taking faculty, mostly from community colleges and four-year colleges who aren't doing research, and connect them up to current research topics in Homeland Security, again, that they might bring back to their classroom. And I should say one more thing. We also have a large undergraduate research program in the summer, working one-on-one with a mentor. The students get into some of the projects we're interested in. So happy to collaborate. It doesn't matter what your discipline is, there is something that we can connect to.
So my name is Brian Krisky. I am the Executive Director for the Collaborative Center for Community Engagement within DICE, so the Division of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement. So if you notice, we are not attached to the academic side, we're not attached to student affairs side, we span everywhere. And the center's focus is on the co-curricular development. However, currently there is not an area that's doing curricular engagement, so getting people connected with the off-campus on the curricular side. So we are always happy to step in and make those connections. We just can't talk about it or advertise it, but everyone knows about it. So we focus on making these connections between faculty, staff, and students with our community partners. Our community partners are both on and off campus. We have about 106 community partners currently, up from 32 when I started in 2022, and most of them are small local nonprofits that are mom and pops, because the American Red Cross doesn't need our help. They connect really well, but our smaller ones do need help. We also present, we created, it's for the co-curricular side, but now we've shifted to the curricular side, on community engagement best practices. In fact, I think this is going to get reworked out again, but we are presenting social context and community accountability in research, and it's mostly focused on STEM research. It's through SEBS, the College of Engineering, School of Graduate Studies, and our center. It will be on April 8th. I have flyers in the back. I am shepherding, putting that in quotes, the 2026 Carnegie Reclassification of Community Engagement. It's a designation that institutions can go through. In terms of community engagement, the importance of it, it is the only place of overlap between the academic master plan and the diversity strategic plan is in community engagement. So there is a large push. And so in terms of that, we also have, and it has launched, well, it's soft launch, the email will be coming out. We have Our Community, which tracks community engagement. It allows faculty to track community engagement in their courses. It allows our off-campus and even our on-campus individuals to post volunteer opportunities for our students, our faculty, our staff, and alumni. So that, I also have that information. The collaborative also oversees a few different programs. One is called the Bonner Leaders Program. In the past, we only had 32. This year we have 45. Next year we have been granted 50 students. And these students apply for the program, and they are federal work study. They do their federal work study hours working on projects for on and off-campus community partners. On campus, we have them at the Language Bank, the Idea Center, or the Hatchery. We also have them at the Eagleton Institute. So if you have a center that is outward facing, so serving the community, and you want a modern leader, I'll be happy to talk with you about it. We also have something called Advancing Community Development. The ACD program is funded by a gift from Johnson & Johnson. And what they do is they actually do health research and student groups about 3 to 4 a semester. There are 3 to 4 groups a semester with 3 or 4 students in each group. And they work with community partners to do research in the area of health. This semester, one of the projects they're working on is actually on housing and housing rental laws and translating that into Spanish for individuals in the New Brunswick community. We also do community tours. One of my senior program coordinators, he does community tours, one focusing on food, one on architecture and art, and the last one on culture. And they leave from College Avenue and they tour. It's about an hour to an hour and a half, but he does those tours because we got sick and tired of hearing, don't go here, don't go here, don't go here, rather than let's celebrate the area that surrounds our campus, and let's talk about that importance and showcasing how the impact our community has on Rutgers and what Rutgers can do on their community. We work with everyone. I hear some people here that I need to actually reach out to because part of it is the Carnegie, but also is we want to get our students involved and all of our students involved with collaborating off campus. And I know my partners really do want to communicate with all of you. We do sponsor 3 breakfasts a year, one in August with a cold breakfast, December and February with hot breakfasts. And it's a chance for our people that are partners to come in, they get breakfast, they get a little professional development, depends on what, like we've done grant writing, diversity strategic plan. And then we actually move right into networking. And that's about 45 minutes. And it allows our faculty, staff, our students, our partners to really connect with each other because there is no opportunity for them to do that in New Brunswick right now. Okay.
Thank you so much. Darren, did you? Last but not least,
Hi everyone, sorry I'm late, sick kid at home. So I am the director of the Rutgers Science Explorer program. The Science Explorer program has a couple of goals. The main goal being getting students really excited about different STEM fields and learning about different STEM fields, right? Because when you ask them if they want to be a scientist, they just think of either being a doctor or somebody who plays with chemicals maybe. Or around here, it's a lot of biotech kind of things. But in general, we want to get them to understand that there's lots of different fields out there. And then we also want to give them exposure to scientists. But they don't want to really talk to the older scientists, so we have our grad students that do all the teaching on the bus. They go out, which we train them. We have one here. They go out, we train them, and they do the hands-on activities on our wonderful but very old mobile lab. And they, again, get excited about that, and our graduate students get the opportunity to practice their science skills and their science communication skills. So we're definitely looking to collaborate. We can work together on broader impact statements. We can bring your science out on the bus. We also have tours that come to us on Bush campus in the art building on the 3rd floor. If you've never been there, it's fun. We have a lot of physics demonstrations, hands-on physics demonstrations. So groups come there. We do, our undergrads give them tours of the physics demonstrations, and we do the hands-on activities there as well. So yeah, hopefully but would love to work with any of you, and sorry I'm a little scared because I just turned in.
Okay, here we go. It's scaring me. All right, so you can see that this wonderful group of people represent those 10 investment areas that we talked about earlier. So what I'd like to do now is, I see that lunch has arrived. Our goal was for them to take their little placard and find a table and, for lack of a better word, speed date. Go around, meet with them, have lunch with them, network with them, and think about all the wonderful resources that Rutgers has that you can partner with in order to complete your societal benefits and broader impact work. So this is meant to be entrepreneurial and an exciting time for you to network. So please enjoy lunch and do that. And I just want to say thank you again to the panel. It's amazing to see the wealth of resources that we have here at Rutgers, and these people are amazing with what they do. So they're going to grab their things, go find a table, everybody grab lunch, and we'll reconvene around 1 o'clock to figure out what you guys have learned and wrap up our program with Dr. Marika Dunn and Lori Dars, who are going to talk about kind of the future of NSF and how they're looking at multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary solicitations and talk more about that, which I think is really important. So don't leave. Come back for that, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Different ways of looking at broader impacts are really inspiring. But when you get out of the classroom, the metrics seem more complicated. Of like, if I'm going to go work on policy with the WMO for hurricanes, how do I quantify metrics and impacts on that? Or do the organizations that you mentioned know how to do that, I guess? Or is it a kind of an unknown?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And you know, like I said, evaluation is probably the most difficult part of this broader impacts, and as NSF scales up their requirements for evaluation, your question becomes even more important, right? Like, how do we know that we're doing it the right way? So a couple thoughts on it, and I don't pretend to have all the answers on it, but the answer is a lot of times, yes, they do know how to assess that. I think the most important thing is to create what we call a logic model with your partner, and we could teach a whole class on that too, but that's essentially separating the how we'll know we're successful on kind of a quantitative level, just having a conversation like, well, if we did this and if this happened, we would feel successful, right? And then what you do is take that logic model output that you've just created, in other words, what your numbers look like and what you want your impacts to be, and you take that to someone who's trained in evaluation, and sometimes, like the Center for Urban Policy or Blaustein probably has people that could translate that into evaluation strategies, if you will. Not everyone can. A lot of your NGOs, probably would have not know how to do that. Some of them might. It's really kind of all over the place, and that's why I would, to answer Osa's question earlier, I would strongly advocate, for Rutgers in the future to have evaluation people. I know, like I said before, Cooperative Extension is working hard to try to identify a position in that. We haven't been successful yet, but that's something that's desperately needed, to have someone who can integrate all that, Travis, into a package, between the partner and the university level, right? To make sure that, because it's only going to get more important. What we're hearing from NSF and every meeting I've attended has been, we want the impacts to be measured more carefully in the future. And you're seeing it in reviews like Osa talked about. So it is really important, but it's definitely a capacity building thing here at Rutgers that we need to work on. So thanks for that question, that's a good one. Any other reflections, comments, questions, thoughts? Anybody get a new partner that they're writing a proposal with? I hope so.
Actually, can I follow up on your comments about evaluation research? I think that's a really good one, because there are evaluation researchers at Rutgers, and you're right, some of them are at the Center for Urban Policy Research. I count as one. I know there are several, and my voice too. Several at the Heldrick Center for Workforce Development, and probably more at Blaustein I'm not thinking of now. And it's long been our mission to be able to partner with others at the university to provide that kind of assistance. But the question is, how do you find each other? Right. Never mind even within the Blaustein School. So I didn't talk about it earlier, but my largest state client is the Board of Public Utilities Clean Energy Program. And at Blaustein, we've served as the evaluators for that program for the last 18 years. So there are quite a few people over time, even if they didn't start out in evaluation research as I did from the RAND Corporation, a lot of people have kind of learned evaluation along the way. And we'd be thrilled to connect, as well as some of our students. Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
So thanks for the advertising.
Yeah, no, I know you guys have, but again, it's that tension, right, that Travis is asking, is like, are there people like you who research, who understand how to do it, but it's another thing to have use-inspired people who are gonna help you do the work, right, in an applied way. So they're two different, but they don't have to be, right? So one of the awesome outcomes of this workshop has been, I now know these 10 people, and we're going to put our heads together more thoughtfully about maybe putting together this portal site that Oscar brainstormed. So, you know, maybe we'll work on that for Osa's question. Where do I go? Where do I start? So, and Travis's as well. So stay tuned. We're going to keep working on it. Any other thoughts, reflections before we move on? We have 2 more presentations, and I'm going to ask that on the back of your agenda there is an evaluation, talking about evaluation. Excellent segue there. There is a QR code that before you leave, please do answer a few questions about this workshop today so that my evaluator doesn't yell at me. We use evaluators from Carleton College. It's a Center for Evaluative Research Center. It's a great group to work with. They specialize in the geosciences and climate change. So that's the top one of my list, Osa, that I will put on the list to send to you in the portal. So, but anyway, they're the ones running this evaluation, and they will certainly yell at me if you don't fill it out. So don't let them yell at me. So I'm going to segue us now. I'm super excited to present the next speaker to you, someone I've known for a while now, but haven't had worked with in a while. This is Lori Dars and Mark de Guzman, and they are going to talk to you a little bit about kind of this next level stuff, right? Of thinking about, you know, sort of broader impacts around their work in the I-Corps Hub program. So I'm going to let them take it away, and they're going to share all their knowledge with you too. So thank you guys.
Hi everybody, it's so good to have you here today, and I'm really excited to talk with you. I'm Lori Dars. I'm Associate Director for Economic Development and Innovation in NJAES. I'm also a Senior Advisor in Rutgers Master in Business and Science program, but I'm here with you today to talk about my role in the I-Corps, and I stands for Innovation Corps program. And before I go through a couple slides, I want to introduce my colleague Mark, and he's going to kind of set us up for my talk.
Okay, great. Hi everyone. My name is Mark de Guzman. I'm one of the program managers for the NSF I-Corps Northeast Hub, and I'm also manager of new ventures in the Rutgers Office for Research, Tech Transfer Office, supporting innovators who have created impactful university-owned technologies and try to commercialize those technologies through creation of startup companies. And I think like this whole discussion, do the next slide? Yeah. So one of the big things about NSF and I-Corps in general is really they really want to push more innovation entrepreneurship, which is extending the research arm of what you've been doing at the university to, and it really speaks to the broader impacts that you're trying to promote and identify. So as you think of, you know, I think it was said before, like broader impacts might be considered more like an afterthought. It's like, oh, I have to put the broader impacts in my proposal for it to be funded. But now this like flips it on its head, where it's like you actually integrate the broader impacts, not just to be like, oh, this could happen. Like my research team is going to figure out a way to create this broader impact method or way of doing it, and then now we're going to actually do it. We're actually going to develop this technology into a way that could be maybe a patented innovation or even non-patent IP, like a software or some creative work or some curriculum. But the idea is to get this idea figured out, and then now we're going to implement it, and we're going to start small, we'll start local, and then we'll expand it nationwide. But that way the research discoveries you're making in your research can actually have impact in the world, and you get support and funding from the government. So recently in 2022, they created this new TIP directorate, which stands for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships. The idea is the research that you guys are doing now, down the road, the broader impacts that you put in your proposal actually can become a reality if you put the time and the effort. And we, you know, I'm part of the team that helps support you in your efforts to create this real world impact from the research discoveries you're doing in the lab. So I just want to mention that it's really exciting to see that the broader impact, it starts at the broader impacts like what you write down on a piece of paper, but we want to help guide you towards making that a reality. And you know, we know it's kind of a little bit out of your comfort zone because you're focused on the research, but we bring in the expertise and the guidance and support to create impactful startups so you can make it a reality. So that's what I want to mention.
And so we got a grant at Rutgers in, I think 2017 now, to do the I-Core program again. It's Innovation Core. And we ran a Rutgers site for 4 years. And in about 2020, 2021, we went for a bigger NSF grant. And that was the first time I had actually seen broader impacts. And I spoke to Janice recently, and she mentioned they were changing the name from broader impact to societal benefits. I said, or they may, that's kind of the direction they're going. I said, that makes so much sense, because I remember the first time I saw broader impact, I'm like, what is this? And exactly that, how do we figure this into our grant? Even though our work was all about societal impact. So I was really glad to see that. But we now are part of a larger consortium. We're 11 universities that are running these I-Core programs. They're training programs, thank you. And we deliver regional training programs, we deliver national training programs, and we do research on the impacts of innovation and how it relates to researchers and startup companies. And we're very inclusive in I-Core. We believe that anybody that we can help with innovation and entrepreneurship, if anybody's better, we're all better. So we support not only the schools that are in our hub, which stretches all the way from University of Connecticut down to University of Delaware, Delaware State, and some schools in between. We also welcome community innovators. So even though our focus is on university-based researchers, we do include community members and students that are working on innovations. And we've had some significant impacts in 2023. We've now trained over 1,000 teams in just in the 1 year, and 1,000 people, over 185 teams, and a lot of follow-on funding from these researchers and innovators who've created startup companies. And that's just our hub. There's 10 hubs across the country, and this program is being done all over. And one of the reasons I-Core was created is, you've all heard the statistic, startups are risky, about 50% of them fail. The NSF knew that, and they looked at some research and are looking into why do startups fail? What is the #1 reason? And the main reason that startups don't succeed is people are creating products and services that nobody wants. So they're really looking about the market. Is there a market for my innovation? Is there a market for my startup? And that's what we focus on in I-Core. So we began in the program began in 2011 with an innovator from Stanford University, an educator named Steve Blank. And he worked with the NSF to develop I-Core to help researchers working in their labs. They're working on research, they were creating ideas, but they weren't leaving the lab. They weren't going out and having those broader impacts, benefiting society. So I-Core was created with 4 goals: to help train these researchers and innovators, to help bring economic impact and translate technologies, get them out of the lab into the market, and create an ecosystem so that when we do have innovators and entrepreneurs out there, they have support, because doing a company takes a lot of resources and you can't do it alone. So those are the 4 key goals of I-Core. And what we do is we offer a training program as a starting point. And our flagship program is called Propel Us. It's a 4-session training program. You have to have a team of at least 2. But we're going to bring you in and we're going to show you how to determine if what you're working on, if you think it may have commercial value, if there is a market for it. And how do we do that? We use the scientific method. We teach you how to go out and interview customers about their problems and their challenges. So often we find researchers, they're so focused on their technology, they're so focused on their research, they're not thinking about the impact it might have and who it might have that impact for. We'll teach you how to go out and find that out. So the value comes from those customer discovery interviews. We also have a great teaching team in all of our programs. We have mentors, we have people that are scientists, people who are entrepreneurs, and we make them available to you if you go through the program to meet with them one-on-one to talk about the process and to help you go through this 4-session program. I mentioned there is a team of 2. Typically, the faculty member or the innovator is the technical lead, and they have a graduate student or a postdoc working in their lab. They take the lead in I-Core, and they are responsible for really doing the interviews and getting the interviews. And the faculty member is more of a support person and can be as involved as they want to be. We like them to be involved, but we often have faculty say to us, oh, that's a lot of work, I don't know if I can do that. And we said, your student takes the majority of work, we want you to be there in a supporting role to help them out. And if you don't have a team of 2, but you are working on it, this is our ad for our upcoming Propellus. We are going to be having it 2 sessions on site at Rutgers on College Avenue and 2 sessions virtual. We're starting on May 23rd, and we just put our application up. It's live now, and we want you to apply by April 21st. Certainly, I know this might be the first time you've heard about I-Corps. Mark and I are going to be here. We're in the room. We're always available via phone or email if you want to talk with us about this program. If you think, you might have something that could be commercially potential, and this sounds like something you would want to explore. We give a $3,000 grant to teams that go through it to do customer discovery. You can travel to a conference. You can get LinkedIn Premium. Anything that'll help you learn and reach those customers and get out there in front of them. But we also have a lot of opportunities to educate individuals. I put a few of them up here. We have an Entrepreneurship Essentials program just on key topics. So we had one recently on founders equity. We have one coming up. What's the next one on? Go-to-market strategy. Yesterday we had an Innovating Together series, one of our series also for individuals, and we brought together the economic development authorities from the various states, and they talked about the resources they offer. So these are short 1-hour virtual programs that even if you just have an interest or you just want to know more, anybody's welcome to join or attend. We also offer a half-day I-Corps program for individuals. We found that a lot of people don't yet have a team. They're interested in innovation and entrepreneurship. They want to know, what is this I-Corps all about? But they're not ready to invest over 4 weeks in the 4 sessions. So we have a half-day training program. We move it around. We've done it in Camden. We've done it in New Brunswick. The next one we're doing happens to be in Newark. It's coming up soon, April 10th. And it's just an intro to I-Corps, but we make it more of a workshop. We make it fun. We give you an activity. There's a lot of networking opportunities. We also feed you. We give you a nice lunch. So this is just a great way to meet the team and to learn if this program could potentially be something that might help you advance your research and move it to have that great societal impact. And that's it for us. We just wanted to give you a flavor of the things that I-Corps can offer you. Again, we're here. We're available to talk to you. May not be something that is applicable now, but keep it in the back of your mind. We're constantly running cohorts. And we have cohorts all over the region. So Connecticut's running one, Princeton's running one, NJIT. They're open to anybody. So you may be working at Rutgers, but you work in New Brunswick, but you may live closer to Newark and want to attend a program at NJIT. That's totally fine. Or Princeton or wherever. It's more or less the same program, similar modules and outcomes and big teaching team. But we want you to go where it's convenient for you, and we'd love to engage you and start the conversation. So come talk to us. Yeah.
One other thing I want to mention. So I was an entrepreneurial lead for a national I-Corps team where I was thrust into this. I had to do 100 interviews in 7 weeks. It was really a lot of work.
Ours is only 20.
But
our regional program is
the regional program is only 20 over 4 weeks. But the thought was that, when we're talking about broader impacts, I remember the list of 10 broader impacts. There were 3 that rose to the top. Those were the most common ones. You could write down those words on a piece of paper and say, these are the broader impacts that I think are more important. But the value of the I-Corps program helps you meet with those people to understand if they really care about those broader impacts. Do they care about it, or is it just what you think in your head? This really meshes with being a good partner, understanding what their needs are, and seeing if you could deliver that broader impact to them in a way that they would adopt, the way that they accept. And so, broader impacts is really just about the research, discovery, and for a grant proposal. But the idea with I-Corps is if you're going to create a product or service, how will they adopt it? Will they adopt it, and why? Right? If they're looking for something that's faster or cheaper or higher quality, you have to understand what they're looking for, so you can build that rather than what you think. The cartoon guy was all I'm smart, I know everything. They'll be happy to hear me speak. No, it's not about that. It's about creating value in the market for what people want. And the I-Corps program helps you develop the skill of active listening, which I think also speaks to broader impacts, understanding what the community needs. So again, it's a really amazing program. It was transformational for me. So again, if you're passionate about the community that you're trying to develop innovations for or solutions for, broader impacts for, then I would want you to just consider it. Just learn more about it, or if you have students who might want to go to one of the Novus programs, and we're doing it at different campuses. But the idea is it may not affect you right now as you're writing proposals now, but later down the line, you've actually come up with a research discovery. Now you want to make it a reality. So we want to just let you know about the opportunity.
And one other thing is, if you're interested, we can also connect you with a past team, so you can hear from them how it transformed them, what they learned, what the experience was like. We've had a lot of successful teams come out of Rutgers and go on to create startup companies, raise money, but more importantly, impact people and really save lives. They've gotten innovations that have saved lives through this program. They've learned who the right customer is for what they've been working on. So definitely hope you'll consider it and reach out to us if you'd like more information or come to one of our programs.
Let us know if there's any questions. We're in the back there.
So good to see you, Jen.
That post-lunch time frame.
Thank you.
Okay, we're
Yes.
in the home stretch, but this next presentation is really important, and it's kind of futuristic from Dr. Marika Dunn again, to talk a little bit about kind of use-inspired research and how NSF is thinking more broadly about that and how that relates to broader impact. So let's hear from Marika again.
Round two.
Hi again. Thanks to those of you who have been able to stay. I promise I'll try to make this worth your time for staying. Lori and Mark talked about the new TIP directorate in NSF. For those of you who are long and proud awardees of NSF, you'll know that this is a new creation over the past couple of years, and that I-Corps actually was a program under another directorate, and then the TIP directorate was created, and NSF moved the I-Corps program along with convergence accelerators, and I think that we have had a number of convergence accelerators here at Rutgers under the I-Corps brand under the TIP directorate brand, as well as the NSF engines, which you might have heard about as well. That, I will say, and using from one of my favorite quotes, that is, this is not a moment, it's the movement. This is, and I should say, I have worked in research development for a number of years, working across research sponsors, both public and private, but I'll just talk about the public sponsors right now. This is what we're seeing across research sponsors. They are very interested in funding the fundamental research and making sure that it is pushed to translational and use-inspired research. And I'll just give you, we've already heard about the I-Corps program, which is actually a long-standing program, but I'll talk to you about a few other programs here that you'll hopefully see some similar words that you've seen throughout the morning. So many of you probably have or may at some point receive funding from the EPA or be partners with them. This is an example from I believe it's a current RFP. And this is one of their review criteria on research merits, right? And so this is about not only the judgment of the scientific merit of the work, but also the improvements to the environment and human health. A little farther afield from that, ARPA-H. So ARPA-H, for those of you who don't know, is something that is a fairly new concept in the Health and Human Services Division, standing somewhat apart from NIH. It's been called the DARPA for Health, and it is an answer, the federal government's answer to the longstanding problem of NIH just moves really slowly, and sometimes there's a lot of fundamental research that gets stuck there without a fast track for further development and delivery. ARPA-H has been built to develop kind of a big bet strategy. So we're talking 30, 40, 50, 60, $100 million grants to teams of researchers and corporate partners across the US. This is taken from their strategic plan, and as you can see, it's in the same vein as when we talk about the impact of the impact, the societal impact of their work. Now, this one I thought was curious. This is actually a proposal that I'm kind of involved in at this moment in time, which is, as many of you know from a number of different news stories, et cetera, the Chips and Science Act that under President Biden has poured millions and millions of dollars into reshoring the semiconductor industry. I think I found out that we get all of our chips from 2 countries in the world, and none of them are made here. So that has morphed into a number of different solicitations for industry, sometimes with university partners. What I find telling, and this is they have a 2 to 3 page section that is literally called broader impacts. So this is something. So I just want to, in case you all haven't picked up what I'm putting down, I'm underscoring it and I'm putting it in yellow highlight. The work that you have been investing in broader impacts in NSF is the wave of the future. It is the way that research sponsors are thinking of their work. So across the spectrum, again, research sponsors are seeking more of everything. I think the kids are calling it extra now, right? So they're seeking more collaboration, more interdisciplinarity, more partnerships outside academia. And I would say that they're also seeking partnerships even within academia from other institutions. So I wouldn't say long gone are the days of the single PI research, but the trend is even multi-institutional partnerships, even if it's within the family of higher education. And more demonstrated societal impact, which I just said. So I would say the broader impacts that I see in the way of the future, and Janice, you can corroborate hopefully, is that broader impacts is not a standalone thing. It's expected to be infused as a horizontal thread across your work. And this brings me to my final slide here, which is that what I have seen and the words that I've heard the words ecosystem used among sponsors in all different contexts, and not just with NSF. For instance, there was a Economic Development Authority program that I was working on. They call it ecosystem, and they want universities and researchers to be part of the ecosystem. So what I would stress so much for all of us here is that we think of ourselves not just as researchers that can have these dyadic relationships with our partners, but that we are just a part of the number of different stakeholders, and I'm sure there are many more here that I didn't list, that are a part of the ecosystem of scientific development and societal impact. So with that, I'll give it back to Janice. I'll take questions, sure. Oscar?
Yeah, so with some of these, those are usually really big proposals, right? And so, what would you recommend as a strategy so we get ahead of the game? Because if we get the weekly update that there's a proposal due in 3 months, that's too late to put together one of these really big ones. And so what are the thoughts as an institution of how maybe we get ahead? And I don't know the answer.
Yeah, well, I have, I would say that the push is to get the intel as far upstream as you possibly can. And and we have a partner that we work with at Rutgers, Lewis Burke Associates, who's our federal relations partner, and they are inside a lot of research sponsor agencies, and they provide us with ample intel. I would say that there are prospect researchers in the foundation, if you're interested in the philanthropic landscape, that they can dig up work and intel for you on private sponsors. Having that intel in terms of what sponsors across different agencies are doing, have worked on. The more intel that you can find on, I'm a political scientist, so maybe I don't think this is boring, but like appropriations, like the conversations that are going on in Congress now about what to appropriate and at what level, that will have a direct impact on what agencies will be able to even have enough money to prioritize or deprioritize a particular program. And so knowing that is really helpful in figuring out what the priorities will be of a specific funder. Does that answer part of your question? Did you want me to?
I can also add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I mentioned at the beginning, Oscar, that we're going to be doing these at Convergence Cafe. We've been working with Louis Burke for several weeks now to identify kind of emerging issues. So that's going to be one point of entry, and we're going to also be trying to link that up to these groundwork grants. So that's one approach in terms of the climate and energy space. And I think the bioeconomy is going to be our big topic area there. And then the other aspect of what you were asking, so we periodically get requests from Louis Burke's folks, and I send it out to all the affiliates of our institute saying, here's your opportunity to comment on this research agenda that's coming out of NSF or other places. If nobody responds, we can't influence it. But if you respond, you can influence it. And sometimes it's just not enough time and it's not something people are that interested in. But we do have those points of entry, and if anybody wants to talk to us some more about it, glad to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marjorie. And that actually brings up one of my favorite expressions is if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I think that there is agency that researchers have in sending information, the responses to the request for information. Many times, and this happens especially in DOE, but also I think in NSF and others, many times program officers, program directors at these agencies will see who responded, and if they're interested, they will reach back out to learn a little bit more about what folks are thinking. NSF is doing a lot more of these kind of ideas cafes, right, in different areas. I mean, that's, I think, how the MOC program the COPE program got started, is because there were a group of folks, and I think Bob Kopp was one of these, right, went to Washington, hung out with people at NSF and other researchers across the country for a few days. Several people from Rutgers, right? And then out pops this solicitation that, wow, it looks very similar to what some of the conversations had, and it looks like it aligns with a lot of Rutgers' strengths. That's actually not a coincidence. And so the more that you can talk to program officers, the more in which you can respond to these solicitations, you can actually be part of this as opposed to just being reactive. Anyone else? Yeah.
So thanks. It's nice to see this described as an ecosystem, because it's very clear there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different pieces need to be aligned. And I have to say I'm a little bit concerned that Rutgers is not also aligning support within our institution for this. So a good example of this is the Office of Research used to have support for large proposals as part of
I led that program.
Yes.
I led that division. Yeah.
So, and now it's gone, which I'm very sad about. So I'm not quite sure, like, what's the alternative? Are there other ways to do this? Because that's exactly what we need help with, right? Like individuals, like, you know, these sorts of network things are great. You know, you get sort of pieces here and there, but there needs to be some sort of institutional support to really make sure all the pieces are in place. It can't fall to single PIs. And so I'm wondering what the office is thinking of in terms of how do we institutionally not just sort of see what's coming out of NSF and the other funders, but how can we ourselves create this sort of enabling environment to help us do this sort of, you know, multifaceted approach?
That's a really great question and requires coffee or wine. But what I will say is that there are two ways I would answer that. One is any way that we in the Office for Research can help connect across chancellor units, we're more than happy to do so. We also have reports and trainings available for, I believe, at least it's research and center leadership, if not elsewhere, on research data, sponsored research data coming out for research leadership to kind of see trends on things that are being funded at the university. The other thing that I would say is that this is the beauty, I think, of interdisciplinary research centers like RCEI, which has affiliates in particular spaces that are trying to develop infrastructure in order to meet the needs of teaming, ideating, bringing individuals in like areas together, and can liaison with the resources that we do have in the sponsored research area in the Office for Research to help get those proposals out the door. But I'm happy to talk to you more and pick your brain on that. Well, thank you.
Made it to the end. A big thanks to Marika and Lori and Mark and our 10 panelists for all their input today. And just to wrap up, I just want to reiterate that at the heart of all this is this identity building. And really, hopefully you'll leave here today thinking about what you love to do, what you can do, and what you should do. And look for that sweet spot in the center there. That really will help you think about your broader impacts. It really comes down to that in the end. And I really encourage you to walk out thinking more about that. And then, in terms of the partnership piece that we talked a lot about, just being patient with yourself and all the items we just talked about that Pam raised and that Marika responded to, that it really is a journey, right? It takes a lot of work, and it really is not a destination. It's going to take a long time to build up the capacity that we all want to do this work, but keeping in mind that the work is really important and it'll be really worth it in the end. Building trust and leadership, resolving conflict, or sort of that what I learned in kindergarten stuff that still applies here, right? Communication, listening, and being patient at the end of the day are really the most important things that I hope you'll think about when you think about writing your proposals. Proposal writing is hard work for all the reasons we've talked about today, and I wish you the best in all of that, and also to let you know that if you have other ideas for other workshops you'd like to see, Oscar and Marjorie and I have thought a lot about this and would like to offer more, make this not a one-off. We're hoping for additional funding from NSF to continue this work. It's in the works, fingers crossed. Everybody keep their fingers crossed for us. We're looking for, more ideas from you. I can just tell you more broadly, we do want an evaluation, which definitely sounded like one that you might want to hone in on. We do one on career proposals, if anyone's thinking about a career proposal. We do a deep, in-depth dive into the broader impact identity. So these are ones we've offered before. It doesn't mean that that's all we can do. So if you have ideas of things that you want or need, please do reach out to me and share your ideas so that we can be responsive to what you need as a researcher. Any other final comments or questions that you all have before we wrap up for the day? As I said, the last thing I'll ask you to do is fill out our evaluation. It's on the back of your agenda. And this is how you can reach me. This is the website for ARIS, researchinsociety.org. And we will be happy to hear from you in either way. But please do fill out the evaluation. We're very happy to have your input. It's really short and simple. You should be able to do it on your phone without much hassle. So please do that for us. Any other thoughts, comments? Yes, Brian.
One thing, on behalf of my departmental manager, she sent over luggage tags, portable pet, water, dog bowl, food bowl, cell phone holders and pens, please come and take some. That will make her happy. Make me my life better.
And that you don't have to carry it back. So thanks for the swag, Brian. That's great.
I think I'm gonna go get
Marjorie, do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
No, just thanks for coming. Thank you, Janice. You did a great job, and we hope this was helpful to you, and stay in touch.
Thank you, everybody.